Chapter 5184. This cauldron could help refine a powerful immortal Tao being. It was definitely extraordinary. Even if he couldn't see anything unusual about it now, he couldn't miss it. The future self nodded and also put the cauldron into the Grand Supreme Immortal City. Regardless of whether it was the future self or the present self, they were both Lu Ming himself. It was the same no matter who put it away. Finally they looked at the blood crystal. That might be the shed skin left behind by the Lord of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty. It was definitely precious. Even if it wasn't as good as the immortal's blood, it wouldn't be too far off. Lu Ming was about to put away the immortal's shed skin when the blood crystal suddenly vibrated slightly. It turned into a ray of light and flew towards Lu Ming's present self. It entered Lu Ming's glabella and appeared in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. The expression of the present self changed. Could it be that the Lord of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty hasn't completely fallen and his consciousness remains? Lu Ming's present self said. It's hard to say. Legend has it that some immortal Tao powerhouses left behind the immortal's shed skin and didn't completely fall. One day they can use the shed skin to be reborn. The future self said. There's actually such a thing. Lu Ming's present self was shocked. Yes, there are such records, but there don't seem to be many. Most of the immortal Tao powerhouses who left behind their shed skin really transformed into the Tao. It's impossible for them to be reborn. The future self said. After speaking, the future self turned into a ray of light and flew into the present self, reappearing near the source root. The future self guarded here and could help protect the source root. Even if it was ambushed, it could protect the source root from being destroyed. Lu Ming had a lot on his mind. Even if the Lord of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty was an immortal Tao powerhouse of the primitive universe, the blood crystal left behind still made him feel a little uncomfortable when it flew into Lu Ming's body on its own. However, this was the immortal's shed skin after all. He still couldn't bear to give it up just like that. He could only study it in the future. This trip could be said to be a great harvest. Putting everything else aside, just the value of the 10 bottles of immortal's blood was immeasurable. If those sub-immortals outside knew about it, they would probably go crazy with jealousy. Immortal blood had a fatal attraction to sub-immortals. It was no different from the body-cleansing elixir as it was related to the immortal tribulation. Lu Ming and Qiuqiu scanned their surroundings but found nothing, so they planned to leave. They went back the way they came and left the giant mountain. Boom boom boom, those sub-immortals were still attacking the light screen outside the huge mountain. Take your time. Lu Ming mumbled and silently left. Not long after, Lu Ming left the Grand Supreme Immortal Capital. As expected, the Great Tribulation of Quintessence has completely passed. After leaving the Grand Supreme Immortal City, Lu Ming could clearly feel that the pressure between heaven and earth had disappeared. There was nothing left. This meant that the 10,000 years of origin tribulation had passed. It also meant that an era of incomparable chaos had arrived. Lu Ming was very worried about Xian Yanqing and the others, as well as the situation in Songqing Immortal Realm. He moved at full speed towards the area where Xian Yanqing and the others were. Lu Ming tore through the void and traveled at an extremely fast speed. A few days later, he arrived at his destination. This was the transfer area of the Songqing Immortal Realm. It was very barren and remote. Lu Ming had been here a few times and was familiar with the place. Moreover, the guards knew Lu Ming and let him through when they saw Lu Ming. Soon Lu Ming saw Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon and the others. Seeing that everyone was fine, Lu Ming was relieved. Lu Ming, where did you go? I couldn't send a voice transmission jade token out, Xian Yanqing complained when she saw Lu Ming. All these years they had been extremely worried. Lu Ming seemed to have disappeared and there was no news at all. I was trapped. Immediately, Lu Ming briefly recounted his experiences over the years. Xian Yanqing and the others also talked about the changes in the primitive universe over the years. 10 years ago, after the Great Tribulation of the Origins, the sub-immortals of the Outerverse descended. These people were like bandits, crazily attacking those ruins. In the past 10 years, almost all the ruins left in the primitive universe have been plundered by these sub-immortals. These bandits are shameless. The treasures left behind by the ancestors of our primitive universe are all gone. These bastards took advantage of them. The one who spoke was Dandan. When he thought of the countless treasures being taken away by the Outerverse, he was so angry that his eyes widened and he gnashed his teeth in jealousy. The others also sighed. At its peak, the primitive universe was ranked 11th in the Yang realm. It was extremely powerful and prosperous. Immortals roamed freely and there were countless treasures. However, at the end of the last era, the primitive continent was destroyed and a batch of treasures had been plundered by the people of the Netherworld. There were not many treasures left. Now, after being plundered like this, there was really nothing left. Although those ruins had powerful restriction arrays and some were full of danger, how could they stop the sub-immortals? Unless it was an immortal or a living being, it was just some ruins. After so many years, it was impossible to stop those sub-immortals. Moreover, there was more than one sub-immortal. Most of the ruins had been dug up. The remaining treasures had been plundered. However, the living beings of the primitive universe could only watch helplessly and were powerless to stop them. It was really sad. By the way, how's the Azure Divine Realm? Lu Ming asked. It's fine for the time being. Over the years, the mighty figures of the Outerverse seem to have not been able to deduce the whereabouts of the third core of the universe. Xian Yanqing said. Lu Ming's heart relaxed slightly. It was good that the Azure Divine Realm was fine. At the same time, he was also puzzled. There were a total of 5 core of the universe fragments. 2 had been plundered. One was the Azure Divine Realm, and the other was the Chaos Ring. Because the Azure Divine Realm was sealed and the Chaos Ring was placed in Qiuqiu's stomach, it was isolated from deduction. That was why it had not been discovered over the years. Where was the 5th core of the universe fragment? Since it had not been deduced, it was probably in a special place. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Lu Ming still planned to leave this place and head to the Azure Divine Realm to take a look. However, just as Lu Ming left these continents, he was stopped. Lu Ming, wait a minute, a voice came from behind. Lu Ming turned around and saw a few figures flying over. They were all humans in the Azure Divine Realm. There were a total of 3 people. These 3 people looked very young, about 20 years old, but their cultivation was very high. They were all at the peak of origin. 2 men and 1 woman. I'm Lu Song. I'm Yao Yi. I'm Feng Qiushan. The 3 of them introduced themselves. Lu Ming greets the 3 of you. May I know why you stopped, Lu Ming? Lu Ming cupped his fists. These 3 people looked young, but they could reach the peak of origin. They were most likely monstrous geniuses in the Azure Divine Realm. Of course, they were only young compared to other origins. Judging from their life aura, they should be close to a stellar year. Lu Ming, are you going to the Azure Divine Realm? Lu Song asked. That's right. Lu Ming nodded. It's better not to go. The Azure Divine Realm has been completely sealed. You can't enter or leave. Lu Song shook his head. Chapter 5185. Lu Song and the other 2 told him that the Azure Divine Realm had been completely sealed and no one could enter or leave. At the same time, the primogenitors had ordered them not to return. In the Ashen Cyan Divine Realm, most of the existences above the origin level stayed in the Ashen Cyan Divine Realm. They lived and died with the Ashen Cyan Divine Realm and guarded it. Only a small number of experts at the origin level and above had moved here. For example, Lu Song, Yao Yi, and Feng Qiushan were very talented. They were not very old and had great potential. They were considered to be the seeds of the Ashen Azure Immortal Realm. At the same time, they were not weak and could protect the clansmen of the Ashen Azure Immortal Realm who were not very strong. Lu Ming was helpless. It seemed that he couldn't return to the Azure Divine Realm for the time being. At the same time, he was also worried. 10 years had passed since the origin source tribulation. The powerhouses of the Outerverse must be trying their best to deduce the remaining fragments of the universe core. Although the Chaos Ring was in Qiuqiu's stomach and could isolate it from the heavens to a certain extent, there was no guarantee that it would be deduced at any time. I can't stay here for long. How should I deal with the Chaos Ring? Lu Ming frowned. If he continued to stay here and the Chaos Ring was deduced, it would only implicate others. It's a pity that Senior Fei Huang's avatar left after waking up. Otherwise, I could give the Chaos Ring to her. She definitely has more methods than I do. Lu Ming sighed inwardly. At this time, Lu Song and the other 2's expressions suddenly changed. They took out their transmission jade talismans to check. Not good. There are powerhouses from the great universe heading to the Azure Divine Realm. The 3 exclaimed at the same time. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He asked, what's going on? Although we can't return to the Tsangqing Sacred Realm, we left a monitoring array in the void outside the Tsangqing Sacred Realm. We can observe the situation inside the Tsangqing Sacred Realm. We just saw a large number of elites from the great cosmos appear outside the Tsangqing Sacred Realm. Feng Qiushan quickly explained. Let's go take a look, Lu Song said. Immediately they quickly returned and arrived at a large hall. There was a huge mirror in the middle of the hall that reflected an image. At this moment, there were at least a few dozen people in the hall who had hurried over. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the mirror. The mirror reflected the void of the universe. Lu Ming could see that in the distance were the original entrances to the Azure Divine Realm. At this moment, a group of people appeared outside the entrance of the Azure Divine Realm. They're from the 10th ranked Great Cosmos of the Underworld, the Nether River Great Cosmos. Lu Ming recognized him immediately. This was because Lu Ming had seen and dealt with some of them before. Of course, most of them were unfamiliar faces. This is the Azure Divine Realm? Someone in the Nether River Great Cosmos spoke. His voice was clearly heard. The Patriarch has already deduced that the Azure Immortal Realm is the third fragment of the universe core. Those fellows must have been prepared and sealed it completely. So what if it's sealed completely? How can it stop our footsteps? All we have to do is break it open and wipe out all the humans within. People from the Nether River Great Cosmos spoke one after another, their voices cold. At this moment, a middle-aged man suddenly turned his head and looked at Lu Ming and the others. To be more precise, he was looking at the area where the monitoring formation was located. The middle-aged man snorted coldly, his eyes emitting a dark light. With a bang, the image on the mirror disappeared. Obviously, the monitoring formation had been broken. Everyone's expression was extremely ugly. What was supposed to happen had finally happened. The people of the Outerverse had finally deduced that the Azure Immortal Realm was the fragment of the universe core. One could imagine that there would be a fierce battle in the Azure Immortal Realm. Let's go and take a look, Lu Song said. He was obviously worried. With our strength, we'll just be courting death if we go back. Someone sighed. Needless to say, there were definitely sub-immortal powerhouses in the Nether River Great Cosmos, and there would be quite a number of them. With their strength, they wouldn't be able to withstand a single blow from a sub-immortal. We're not going back to risk our lives. The main reason is that we're worried. We'll go back and check the situation. We'll hide in the distance and not get close. Lu Song said. I agree. We'll hide in the distance and report the situation back at any time. Yao Yi also said. In the end, Lu Song and the other four were sent to the Azure Immortal Realm to observe the situation. Everyone, I'll go with you, Lu Ming said. He had originally planned to leave this place. At the same time, he also wanted to know how the battle in the Azure Immortal Realm would end. Lu Song and the others nodded and didn't refuse. Everyone immediately set off. Now, the primitive universe was constantly recovering, and the laws and order were becoming more and more perfect. The environment had already undergone earth-shattering changes compared to the original universe ruins. Back then, the laws and order of the universe ruins were chaotic, and even wormholes were difficult to open. Even if they were opened in a short period of time, they wouldn't be able to stay for long. But now, not only were wormholes easy to open, but they were also stable and could last for a long time. Therefore, the current primitive universe was filled with wormholes, and traveling through them had become fast and easy. Lu Ming and the others flew for a distance and saw many wormholes. They took the wormholes and quickly rushed to the Azure Immortal Realm. Outside the Azure Immortal Realm, there were at least a few hundred experts from the Nether River Great Cosmos. Of course, most of them were Origin Realm existences, but there were also many sub-immortal powerhouses. The Azure Immortal Realm turns out to be the remnants of the primitive universe human race. It turns out that you have occupied a piece of the heart of the universe. However, this is the end. Take the initiative to open the seal and hand over the fragment of the heart of the universe. We can spare your lives, a middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos said coldly as he looked at the entrance of the Azure Immortal Realm. His gaze seemed to penetrate the seal of the Azure Immortal Realm. However, his voice didn't reach the interior of the Azure Immortal Realm. It was blocked. Now the Azure Immortal Realm was completely sealed and no one could enter or leave. Even sub-immortals couldn't enter or leave, let alone transmit their voices. However, they could read the shape of the lips. There were many people guarding the entrance of the Azure Immortal Realm. They could see through the seal and read the lips of the middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos. Do you really want to kill us all? If all the fragments of the heart of the universe are taken away, the primitive universe will be completely destroyed. No matter what, we have to protect a fragment of the heart of the universe. An elder in the Azure Immortal Realm spoke. Of course, his voice couldn't be transmitted, but the other party could see the shape of his lips. This elder was extremely old and his face was filled with wrinkles. He was a sub-immortal who had survived from the previous epoch. Leaving behind a fragment of the heart of the universe in a futile attempt to revive? What a joke. Since the primitive universe has been destroyed, it doesn't need to exist anymore. Since you are so stubborn, the human race doesn't need to exist anymore. It should be annihilated, the middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos said coldly. It was as if annihilating a race was a trivial matter in his eyes. You want to stop us with a mere seal? Just break it. Another expert from the Nether River Great Cosmos said. Chapter 5186. The Nether River Great Cosmos was very overbearing. They didn't want to waste any time and wanted to make a move right away. They didn't take the seal of the Azure Divine Realm seriously. They were sub-immortals. What seal could stop them in a mere primordial universe? Many of the ruins left behind from the primordial era had powerful restriction array formations or various seals, but they were still broken by them in the end. Bang, bang, bang. A few figures stepped out and an extremely shocking aura erupted from their bodies. The void around them instantly crumbled like paper, forming a large patch of primordial chaos. Sub-immortals. These people were all sub-immortals. Their auras were shocking. However, just as these sub-immortals were about to make a move, they suddenly stopped in their tracks and looked in a certain direction. Crash. The void in that direction suddenly cracked open and several figures appeared out of thin air. These figures were also extremely powerful. They were all experts. Sacred Light Great Cosmos. The eyes of the people from the Nether River Great Cosmos suddenly shrank. Sacred Light Great Cosmos, what are you doing here? The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos said coldly. They had already sent people to seal off the surroundings. Their voices couldn't be transmitted out. The others shouldn't know what was happening here, nor should they know that the Azure Divine Realm was a fragment of the core of the universe. What's there to pretend now? Do you think only your patriarch can deduce that this is a fragment of the core of the universe? Someone from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos sneered. The people from the Nether River Great Cosmos had gloomy expressions. Clearly, the almighties of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos had also deduced this. Originally, they had wanted to end the battle quickly and seize the fragment of the core of the universe before the other great cosmoses deduced that this place was a fragment of the core of the universe. They hadn't expected that the Sacred Light Great Cosmos wouldn't be any slower than them. They had just arrived and exchanged a few words, yet the Sacred Light Great Cosmos had already arrived. In that case, let's rely on our own abilities. The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos said. Since the Sacred Light Great Cosmos had already arrived, there was nothing much to say. In the end, they would have to rely on their own abilities to speak. Neither side would back down, so it was useless to say anything more. The auras of the experts from both sides erupted and clashed. The atmosphere instantly became tense. Humans of the Azure Divine Realm, listen up. We are from the Holy Light Great Cosmos, which is ranked 8th in the world of the living. I believe you have heard of it. An elder from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos spoke in the direction of the entrance of the Changqing Divine Realm. The universe core fragment is of great importance. It absolutely cannot fall into the hands of the underworld. Otherwise, it will only strengthen the underworld. Therefore, it is best that you take the initiative to hand over the universe core fragment to us for safekeeping. So King Shameless. Many people in the Changqing Divine Realm cursed. They were extremely indignant. The people of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos were really shameless. They could have just said that they wanted to seize the fragment of the universe core, but they actually said that they wanted to stop the underworld and prevent the fragment from falling into the hands of the underworld. She was really a prostitute who wanted to set up a monument for her chastity. Since we are all from the world of the living, why don't you protect us so that we won't be attacked by the people of the underworld and lose the fragment of the universe core? Someone in the Azure Divine Realm said. Many people from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos sneered. The descendants of the primordial world's human race are simply naive and laughable. He wanted them to take action and protect him, stop the Yin world's experts? Are you stupid? Why would they do it if there were no benefits? The primordial world has long been kicked out of the Yang court. You don't qualify for our protection. This old man will say it one last time. Take the initiative to hand over the fragment of the universe core to us. Otherwise, if the fragment of the universe core falls into the hands of the underworld and increases their strength, you will be condemned by the world of the living. You won't be able to escape the blame even if your race is annihilated. The elder from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos said coldly. Many people in the Azure Divine Realm wanted to curse out loud. They were really shameless. Everyone says that the Sacred Light Great Cosmos is a hypocrite on the surface. Indeed, you live up to your reputation. An expert from the Nether River Great Cosmos sneered. Make your move lest something unexpected happens. Someone from the Nether River Great Cosmos said. If they took action now, they would only compete with the people of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos. If they delayed any longer, there might be other great cosmoses coming and the competition would be even more intense. It would be even more troublesome to obtain the fragment of the universe core. Boom, 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 boom. A total of 4 experts from the Nether River Great Cosmos took action. They took a step forward with astonishing auras. With a flip of their hands, 4 long rivers flew out and rushed toward the entrance of the Azure Divine Realm. The combined attack of the 4 sub-immortals was earth-shattering. The 4 attacks landed on the entrance of the Tsangqing Immortal Realm, causing an earth-shattering explosion. The surrounding space exploded and turned into chaos. Terrifying spatial cracks formed and extended into the distance. No one knew how long they extended. However, the entrance of the Azure Divine Realm didn't break open. Only a slight ripple appeared. What a strong defense. The people from the Nether River Great Cosmos and the Sacred Light Great Cosmos were shocked. 4 sub-immortals had taken action, and all of them were at least 4 tribulation sub-immortals. However, they still couldn't break through the defense of the Azure Divine Realm. Break. Break. The 4 sub-immortals from the Nether River Great Cosmos roared and unleashed their full strength. They pushed their combat strength to the peak and executed their strongest attack. The surrounding space exploded continuously like grass being torn apart. However, the seal of the Azure Divine Realm still couldn't be broken. Looks like you guys can't do it. Go and help them. The Elder from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos instructed a few experts from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos. 4 experts from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos also stepped forward. The power of the Sacred Light Origin Source soared into the sky and transformed into 4 battle swords. Each sword was billions of miles long and slashed toward the entrance of the Azure Divine Realm. The combined might of the 8 experts was truly terrifying. However, they still couldn't open the entrance of the Azure Divine Realm. The Azure Divine Realm has been completely sealed. The entrance is no longer a simple array formation. It's the most primitive seal. In the distance, Lu Ming and the rest were watching from afar on a small fragment of land. At this moment, Lu Song spoke. They had just arrived through the wormhole. However, they didn't dare to approach and could only watch from afar. The Azure Divine Realm had been completely sealed and was in the state it was in before Mullins had opened it. The sealing power was extremely powerful. It was obvious that he was going all out. Otherwise, the defensive array formation wouldn't be able to block the attack of the sub-immortals. All of you back off. I'll take over, said the middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos. The 4 experts from the Nether River Great Cosmos immediately retreated. The 4 experts from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos also retreated. They knew that the middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos was extremely powerful. If they didn't retreat, they would be implicated. Boom. The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos stepped forward and unleashed his aura. At that moment, the world lost its color. Chapter 5187. The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos was too strong. His aura made the world lose its color and everything wither. Even though they were far away, Lu Ming and the others could still feel the terrifying pressure. Their faces were a little pale, as if they were facing a terrifying beast that they could hardly resist. This aura, Lu Ming was shocked. Lu Ming wasn't completely inexperienced. Back then, he had seen the human monarch's body and the battle between the little human monarch and Teak. He had personally experienced that kind of terror. However, the aura of the middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos made him feel like he had seen the battle between the little human monarch and Teak. He had learned from the primogenitors of the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm that the true immortal Tao power couldn't be revealed when the universe was shattered. The power that the human monarch and the human monarch had used to fight Teak was most likely close to the immortal Tao power. The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos also gave off the same feeling. A power close to the immortal Tao. Could he be a 9th tribulation sub-immortal who had undergone 9 immortal tribulations? Boom. The middle-aged man from the Nether River Great Cosmos was called Wang Gu. He reached out with a huge hand and grabbed at the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm. His huge hand was so big that it almost enveloped the entire Ashen Azure Sacred Realm as he grabbed at it. The void exploded as destructive power swept across the sky. Everything seemed to cease to exist. The Ashen Azure Sacred Realm originally only had a few entrances that were visible to the naked eye. The remaining parts were hidden in the depths of the void and were difficult to see. However, the void on the surface of the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm was peeled off layer by layer like grass. In the end, the entire Ashen Azure Sacred Realm was exposed to everyone. It could be seen that the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm was a huge continent that was surrounded by a layer of light screen. This layer of light screen was the seal of the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm. The 5 fingers of Jianghu's huge hand were like 5 mighty immortal spears that pierced the light screen. The light screen trembled continuously and rippled. At that moment, the entire continent of the Ashen Azure Sacred Realm was shaking violently. 9th Tribulation Subimmortal. I didn't expect that even a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal would take action. Aren't they afraid of damaging their foundation and never becoming an immortal? A subimmortal old man in the Azure Divine Realm whispered. It was too difficult to advance step by step and overcome the immortal tribulations to become a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal. At this point he was only 1 step away from the immortal Tao. Knocking on the immortal pass. As long as one could knock open the immortal gate, they would be able to prove their Tao and become an immortal, transcending above the universe. They would become a creature of another level, high up above, eternal and undying. Of course, the last step was very difficult. It could be said to be extremely difficult. It was even more dangerous than the immortal tribulation. The slightest mistake could cause all the previous efforts to go to waste. Therefore, most 9th Tribulation Subimmortals rarely came out. They were all in seclusion to cultivate and adjust their state so that they were always in peak condition. Knocking on the immortal pass was no small matter. If one's condition was not right or if one was injured, the impact would be great. In the past, many 9th Tribulation Subimmortals had failed because of this insignificant influence. This time, the Nether River Great Cosmos had really invested a lot in order to obtain the universe core fragment. Even a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal had been mobilized. Just because of the heart of the universe fragment? Or was there another reason? Open. Jianghu shouted coldly when his attack failed. He attacked again. This time he took out his subimmortal weapon and launched a shocking attack. This subimmortal weapon had accompanied him through the immortal tribulations and reached the level of a 9th Tribulation subimmortal weapon. It was almost at the peak of acquired weapons. This was because true immortal weapons could not be forged at all. They were all born naturally. Immortal weapons were born when the great cosmos was formed or when the endless chaos was born. In history, no one had ever forged a true immortal weapon. A 9th Tribulation subimmortal combined with a 9th Tribulation subimmortal weapon to launch a powerful attack. The Ashen Cyan Godly Realm shook violently. The light screen around the Ashen Cyan Godly Realm also shook violently, as if it was about to be torn apart. However, this seal was really resilient. Although it seemed to be shaking violently, it did not break and resisted the attack. After failing to break the seal after 2 consecutive attacks, Jianghu did not continue attacking. His face was gloomy. It seems like this seal is really formed by an immortal weapon. These human descendants are really willing to destroy an immortal weapon just like that. The old man from the sacred light great cosmos said. Using an immortal weapon's immortal origin as a foundation to form a seal. Although the strength of the seal was very shocking, the immortal weapon was still destroyed. In order to break this seal, one must have power that is infinitely close to the immortal Tao. Otherwise, even if you and I work together, we definitely won't be able to break it. Jianghu looked at the old man from the sacred light great cosmos. The old man from the sacred light great cosmos was in existence on the same level as him. He was also a 9th Tribulation subimmortal. Could it be that the almighties of the Nether River Great Cosmos are not prepared? The old man from the sacred light great cosmos asked. We are prepared, but it is difficult for me to activate it alone. Let's work together. After saying that, a battle sword appeared in Jianghu's hand. The battle sword was pitch black and emitted an astonishingly cold aura. The old man from the sacred light great cosmos was shocked. You guys are really willing to bring an immortal weapon. Aren't you afraid? It's a broken immortal weapon. That's fine. We can work together. Make your move. Jianghu did not say anything else. A massive amount of power surged from his body and poured into the battle sword. The pitch-black battle sword trembled and an unimaginably terrifying power spread out. The immortal weapon had been awakened. The battle sword rapidly enlarged and turned into a towering sword that flew toward the Azure Sacred Realm. Behind Jianghu, the experts from the Nether River Great Cosmos also made their move and poured their power into the immortal weapon. However, Jianghu's body couldn't help but tremble and his face turned pale. Hurry up and do something. Jianghu shouted at the people from the sacred light great cosmos. Even a broken immortal weapon couldn't be activated or awakened by a 9th Tribulation subimmortal. Help them this time. The old man from the sacred light great cosmos shouted and led the experts from the sacred light great cosmos to make their move and pour their power into the immortal weapon. The aura emitted by the immortal weapon became even more terrifying. With a swoosh, it flew out and slashed at the light screen of the Azure Sacred Realm. Boom, It was as if heaven and earth had turned upside down. The sun and moon had lost their light and the entire universe was shaking. Crack. A strange sound came from the light screen of the Azure Sacred Realm. A crack appeared on the sturdy seal. You guys actually dare to use the immortal weapon and display the power of the immortal Tao. Aren't you afraid that the universe will be completely destroyed and you will be buried? An old man from the Azure Sacred Realm roared. The current primitive universe couldn't support the true power of the immortal Tao. If the true power of the immortal Tao erupted, the primitive universe would collapse and be completely destroyed. The power formed by the complete destruction of the universe was terrifying. Even true immortals and immortal Tao monarchs wouldn't be able to resist it and would be buried together. Chapter 5188. Without the core of the universe would be unstable. This was also the reason why no true immortals had come to the primitive universe. But now, Jianghu and the others had used the immortal weapon and displayed the power of the immortal Tao, forcibly breaking the seal of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. How could the people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm not be furious? A crack had been cut open in the seal of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, so the sound could be heard clearly. It's just a broken immortal weapon, not a complete one. Its power is only infinitely close to the power of the immortal Tao. So what? Jianghu sneered and continued to widen the crack in the seal of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. Rumble. Rumbling sounds could be heard in the vast universe. The laws of the universe seemed to be destroyed. Oh no, the primitive universe really can't take it anymore. Quickly put away the immortal weapon. The people of the sacred light great cosmos shouted. Jianghu's expression changed drastically. Even if the broken immortal weapon was fully recovered, its power was too strong. The primitive universe seemed to be unable to take it anymore. Jianghu didn't dare to continue or the primitive universe would really be destroyed. He didn't care about the destruction of the primitive universe, but he was still in the primitive universe and would be destroyed along with it. He didn't want that to happen. Come back. Jianghu shouted and tried his best to put away the broken immortal weapon. The seal had been broken, so there was no need to use the broken immortal weapon. With a buzz, the broken immortal sword turned into a ray of light and was put away by Jianghu. The ripples in the universe disappeared. After all, it was just a broken immortal weapon and not a complete one. Moreover, it would only be used for a short while, so it wouldn't cause too much of an impact. Of course, it was hard to say if it was used continuously. When Jianghu put away the broken immortal sword, the old man of the sacred light great cosmos shouted and reached out with both hands. Two huge hands formed and grabbed the two sides of the crack created by the broken immortal crystal. They pulled outwards, trying to widen the crack and completely tear the seal. Stop them. Repel them and the crack in the seal will automatically heal. The people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm shouted. There were many people in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. The total number of people was no less than 1,000. However, most of them were only at the Origin Realm. There were only a few sub-immortals. These were the elites of the Azure Divine Realm. They worked together to set up the formation. This was not a joint attack formation, but a top-tier source-grade formation. With a sub-immortal as the core and thousands of origin sources as the foundation, this was a top-notch origin formation. This was an ancient formation passed down from the last epoch. His might was astonishing. Clearly, the Azure Divine Realm had made preparations long ago and set up a grand array in advance. The large array activated and turned into a primordial divine dragon that pounced forward. Its dragon roar shook the world as it extended its dragon claws and grabbed the two large hands formed by the elder from the sacred light great cosmos. The two large hands were shaking violently. Humph, a bunch of ants want to break through me? How naive. Open up. The elder from the sacred light great cosmos shouted coldly. He was a 9th tribulation sub-immortal and was really strong. With a shout, his power erupted, and his two hands became even more solid. They actually widened the crack in the seal. Today, the remnants of the primordial world's human race will be wiped out. Jianghu put away the broken immortal weapon and caught his breath. He stretched out his hand and two large hands formed and grabbed at the crack, wanting to completely tear the seal apart. A 9th tribulation sub-immortal was too strong. Even if the powerhouses of the Azure Divine Realm had set up a top-notch origin formation, they would not be able to stop him. The difference was too great. Boom. At this moment, a terrifying aura rushed out from the depths of the Azure Divine Realm. A withered hand stretched out and blasted toward the crack. Finally, it collided with Jianghu's hand at the crack. Boom. It was as if two universes had collided. Heaven and earth rumbled as a terrifying power erupted. The ground of the Azure Divine Realm shook violently, and many places exploded. Mountains and rivers exploded and rivers dried up. Fortunately, this was a fragment of the heart of the universe. If it had been a fragment of another continent, it would have been destroyed by this attack. Dense cracks appeared on Jianghu's giant hand, and then it exploded. He staggered back, his face pale. True immortal? Jianghu was bewildered. In the depths of the Azure Divine Realm, an old figure walked out step by step. Primogenitor. The people of the Azure Divine Realm exclaimed. If Lu Ming were here, he would definitely recognize that this was one of the primogenitors of the Azure Divine Realm. Juniors, don't push your luck, lest you get yourself killed, the primogenitor of the Azure Divine Realm said. The ancestor of the Azure Divine Realm spoke. He looked extremely old, but the aura he exuded right now was world-shaking, suppressing the ancient times. The heart of the universe of the primitive universe has already shattered. How can there be a true immortal? Even a true immortal would have fallen after the heart of the universe shattered. Now he is no different from us. The old man from the sacred light great cosmos spoke with a deafening voice. Jianghu was shocked and instantly recovered. In the exchange just now, he actually felt the aura of a true immortal from his opponent. He was shocked and lost his composure. Although they were already ninth tribulation subimmortals, they were only one step away from becoming a true immortal. However, their combat power was definitely worlds apart. It would not be difficult for a true immortal to kill them. It would only take a finger. However, after the old man from the sacred light great cosmos reminded him, he immediately reacted. The heart of the universe of the primitive universe had already shattered. The other party had not left and had been staying in the primitive universe, so his cultivation level had already fallen. Moreover, if the other party really had the combat power of a true immortal, he would have died from that move. Humph, old man, even if you were a true immortal in the past, I will slaughter an immortal today. Jianghu shouted coldly and stepped forward again, approaching the crack of the Azure Divine Realm. A nether river appeared and surrounded him. A ninth tribulation subimmortal weapon also appeared in his hand. Let's go out and fight. Otherwise, the aftershocks of our battle will help them break the seal. Another voice sounded from the depths of the Azure Divine Realm. A white-haired old woman appeared and stepped through the air. Another primogenitor appeared. Another crippled immortal. Jianghu sneered sarcastically and called the two primogenitors crippled. The two primogenitors were unmoved. They turned into two beams of light and rushed toward the crack of the seal. The two beams of light were like two peerlessly sharp treasured swords. They slashed at the two hands of the old man from the sacred light great cosmos. With two loud bangs, the two hands exploded. The two primogenitors had already appeared outside the seal. The crack in the seal kept squirming and seemed to be slowly recovering. Don't give them time. Let the seal recover. Jianghu shouted and took the initiative to attack one of the primogenitors. Boom. The two clashed for the second time. Jianghu's body trembled violently as he retreated. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. He was completely at a disadvantage in a head-on clash. Chapter 5189. Even if I'm not at my peak and have fallen from the true immortal realm, it won't be too difficult for me to kill you. The patriarch of the Azure godly realm might be old, but he was still full of fighting spirit and invincible belief. When he was at his peak, he was a true immortal, an immortal path elite. Even if his cultivation level had fallen, he was still not someone an ordinary subimmortal 9 tribulation could compare to. He stepped forward, his aura flourishing, and his body glowing with multicolored light. He waved his hand, causing a huge seal to fly out, causing a huge wind to blow as it crushed down toward Jianghu. It was a subimmortal weapon of the 9 tribulation. True immortal weapons were born in the chaos or were born at the beginning of the universe. Therefore, there were not many of them and could be said to be extremely rare. There were not many immortal path elites who had immortal weapons. Many immortal path elites did not have immortal weapons and used subimmortal weapons of the 9 tribulation. For example, the Azure godly realm only had one immortal weapon. In the end of the primordial era, in order to avoid a disaster, he destroyed his immortal weapon and extracted the immortal origin to make a seal. However, the subimmortal weapon of an immortal path elite was actually different from the subimmortal weapon of a subimmortal. The subimmortal weapon of an immortal path elite was constantly tempered and nurtured by immortal chi, and had actually mutated. Although it had not become a true immortal weapon, it was still stronger than an ordinary subimmortal weapon. This was the case for this huge seal. As the huge seal pressed down, Jianghu's expression changed drastically and he shouted, "What are you waiting for?" Boom. Behind Jianghu, the void exploded as a figure stepped out, wielding a halberd. He joined forces with Jianghu and unleashed a powerful attack, blocking the gigantic seal. Another subimmortal 9 tribulation. He was also from the Nether River Great Cosmos. There was more than one subimmortal 9 tribulation from the Nether River Great Cosmos. Indeed, there are still people hiding in the dark. Are there any more? Come out together. The Patriarch of the Azure Godly Realm said. Today I will slaughter the immortal. Another cold shout rang out, and another figure appeared on Jianghu's right. There was no doubt that the person who dared to talk about slaughtering the immortal was a subimmortal 9 tribulation. Against an elite like the Patriarch of the Azure Godly Realm, an ordinary subimmortal 8 tribulation was nothing. The third 9th tribulation subimmortal was a woman. She had a graceful figure and was surrounded by a nether river. Her aura was oppressive. The Nether River Great Cosmos is really generous. They actually sent 3 9th tribulation subimmortals. Today all of you shall stay here. The primogenitor of the Azure Celestial Realm shouted as he activated his seal and attacked with all his might. Slaughter immortals. The 3 great elites of the Nether River Great Cosmos joined forces and engaged in an earth-shattering battle with the primogenitor of the Azure Godly Realm. After a few moves, the Azure primogenitor was at a disadvantage. Although he was a true immortal when he was at his peak, his cultivation level had ultimately fallen. His current cultivation level was only a 9th tribulation subimmortal. Naturally, it was more than enough to deal with an existence of the same level. However, he was completely no match for 3 true immortals. None of those who could survive the 9th stage immortal tribulation and become a 9th stage subimmortal were simple. They were all peerless demonic geniuses with outstanding combat prowess. Weaklings would have died long ago under the immortal tribulation, unable to reach this step. On the other side, the other progenitor of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, the white-haired old woman, was in an even more dangerous situation. This was because a total of 4 9th tribulation subimmortals had come from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos. The 4 of them had joined forces, and the white-haired old woman had been injured in just one move. Primogenitor. The people inside the Azure Celestial Realm shouted worriedly. Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others also clenched their fists nervously. However, at this critical juncture, another figure walked out from the depths of the Azure Celestial Realm. It was a young man, at least on the surface. He looked like he was in his 20s and had a heroic appearance. However, his eyes revealed the vicissitudes of life, as if he had lived through the ages. Primogenitor. It's the thoughtless primogenitor. Lu Song and the others exclaimed in surprise. The legends are true. The thoughtless primogenitor is still here. Yao Yi was also very excited. The thoughtless primogenitor? Lu Ming asked curiously. Legend has it that our Azure Celestial Realm has a total of 3 primogenitors. They were all immortal Dao powerhouses in the previous epoch. The thoughtless primogenitor was the strongest, but it was said that he was severely injured in the Great War of the previous epoch. Therefore, after sealing the Azure Celestial Realm, he has been in a deep slumber. No one has seen him, Lu Song explained. Previously, there were also rumors that the thoughtless primogenitor had been severely injured and might have already died. Now it seems like everything was false. Lu Song said. Lu Ming couldn't help but recall that there were a total of 3 ancient altars in the Ancestral Hall in the depths of the Azure Celestial Realm. Previously, people had appeared on 2 of the altars. They were the 2 primogenitors. Only the altar in the middle hadn't appeared. Now, it seemed like the charcoal in the middle corresponded to the thoughtless primogenitor. The thoughtless primogenitor took a step forward and appeared outside the seal. He threw a palm strike at the 2 9th tribulation subimmortals of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos. Boom. The 2 9th tribulation subimmortals of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos retreated rapidly. The thoughtless primogenitor didn't say a word and continued to attack. His palm strikes were endless, completely suppressing the 2 9th tribulation subimmortals of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos. When he attacked, he also diverted some attention to attack a 9th tribulation subimmortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos, pulling him into the battle. He was fighting 3 great experts alone. In this way, the pressure on the other 2 primogenitors was greatly reduced, and the situation was stabilized. The chaotic battle between the top 10 experts turned the void into chaos. The scene was terrifying and outsiders couldn't interfere. Attack and continue to break the seal. Exterminate the remnants of the human race. A 9th tribulation subimmortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos transmitted his voice. Kill. The other experts of the Nether River Great Cosmos shouted. At least a dozen experts charged toward the Azure Celestial Realm. They were all subimmortals, and there was no lack of 8th Tribulation subimmortals who had undergone 8 immortal tribulations. When they attacked, a powerful force bombarded the crack in the seal. Without the influence of external forces, the crack had been slowly healing. Now that it was attacked, it slowly tore open and the crack grew bigger. Stop them. Inside the Azure Celestial Realm, there were a total of a dozen subimmortals. They led thousands of origins and set up a top-notch source-grade array. They activated the array and transformed into a huge dragon that pounced on the experts of the Nether River Great Cosmos. Instantly, many people were repelled. If you want to die, I'll kill you first. The people of the Nether River Great Cosmos roared. Many people rushed into the seal, wanting to eliminate the experts of the Azure Celestial Realm first. Charge in and kill them all. The Sacred Light Great Cosmos also attacked. At least 20 subimmortals rushed into the crack. The 2 Great Cosmoses had a total of more than 30 subimmortals. Almost 40 of them were subimmortals. When they joined forces, they defeated the huge dragon in an instant. Boom, boom, boom. Dazzling and terrifying attacks attacked the people of the Azure Celestial Realm. The attacks of both sides collided constantly, and the entire Azure Celestial Realm shook. Many people in the Azure Celestial Realm turned pale and vomited blood. Chapter 5190. If it weren't for the formation set up by the people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, those origins wouldn't have been able to participate in the battle and would have died instantly. Let's fight to the death and keep them all here. That's right. Since they want to seize our homeland, we must make them pay the price. The people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm roared. Many Origin Realm existences went all out, burning their origin power with all their might. A few of them even burned their origin roots. The price they had to pay was naturally very heavy. The aftereffects were huge, but they couldn't care less now. Under the lead of more than 10 subimmortals, the people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm unleashed the power of the formation to the extreme, condensing 9 huge primordial divine dragons that pounced on the experts of the 2 universes, trying to keep them all here. You're courting death. You overestimate yourself. There were almost 40 subimmortals in the 2 universes, and there were even 8th Tribulation subimmortals among them. How could they be killed so easily? The 2 sides were locked in a fierce battle. This way no one attacked the seal and the crack on the seal slowly closed. Send some people to expand the gap in the seal, an 8th Tribulation subimmortal of the Holy Light Great Cosmos ordered. Don't even think about it. We must hold them back. The people of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm roared. More people burned their origin roots to cut off their escape route and frantically activated the formation. Their goal was to hold back the experts of the 2 universes and let the gap in the seal close. The 9 primordial divine dragons roared. They were extremely huge and almost filled the entire Ashen Azure Divine Realm. For a moment, the experts of the 2 universes couldn't get away. The 2 battlefields were in a state of anxiety. It would be difficult to determine the outcome of the battle in a short time. But at this moment, the void cracked and 4 figures suddenly walked out. The 4 figures were all enveloped in pure white light. From their appearance, they looked like people of the Holy Light Great Cosmos. However, Lu Ming could tell at a glance that they weren't from the Holy Light Great Cosmos, but the heavenly human race. That's right, they were from the heavenly human race. Lu Ming had interacted with the heavenly human race countless times, so he was very familiar with their aura. There was no way he would be mistaken. The 4 elders of the heavenly human race had powerful auras. They were far stronger than any heavenly human that Lu Ming had ever seen. The 4 lords of the heavenly palace were nothing more than ants and dust in front of the 4 heavenly humans. The 4 heavenly human elders attacked as soon as they appeared. 4 terrifying sword lights slashed at the gap in the seal of the Azure Divine Realm. Rumble. That gap was actually slowly growing larger. From this, it could be seen how powerful those 4 heavenly human elders were. Damn it, where did these 4 fellows come from? Lu Song roared. The heavenly human race. To be exact, it's the demi-human race. Lu Ming said. Demi-human race? I remember now. I saw records in an ancient book that the demi-human race was enslaved by the human race in the previous epoch. Said Yao Yi. What? Slaves? You actually dare to rebel? Lu Song roared. Lu Ming didn't say anything. The 4 great experts of the celestial race appeared here in such a timely manner. They were definitely not simple. The Holy Light Great Cosmos and the Underworld River Great Cosmos had almighty figures behind them who had deduced that the Azure Divine Realm was a fragment of the universe core. Lu Ming didn't believe that anyone from the celestial race could deduce it. It was impossible. The strongest ancestor of the celestial race, Yi Immortal, was still at the origin realm. The celestial race didn't have such a powerhouse. Clearly, the celestial race had been secretly watching the Azure Divine Realm. Perhaps it had something to do with their identity. The celestial race had been enslaved by the human race in the previous epoch. Therefore, they must have been very wary after knowing that there were remnants of the human race in the Azure Divine Realm. It was normal for them to pay attention to it at all times. Now, the celestial race had immediately joined forces with the two great cosmoses to destroy the Azure Divine Realm when they saw the two great cosmoses making a move. They wanted to get rid of the greatest threat in their hearts. Of course, this was only Lu Ming's guess. Perhaps the celestial race had already defected to the Holy Light Great Cosmos. Back when Lu Ming had returned to the Eastern Cosmos, he had been besieged by the celestial race. The celestial race had the Forbidden Soldier domain, so Lu Ming had already suspected that the celestial race had defected to another great cosmos. It was most likely that they had defected to the Holy Light Great Cosmos. This was because the power that the celestial race cultivated was rather similar to the Holy Light Great Cosmos. It's the demi-human race. These traitors. An old sub-immortal in the Azure Divine Realm recognized the four celestial race elders and immediately roared in anger. Rumble. The four celestial race elders didn't say a word. They attacked the gap in the seal with all their strength, causing the gap to expand continuously. If this continued, the seal of the Azure Divine Realm might really be completely torn apart in the long run. The four celestial race elders were extremely powerful. They were all sub-immortals who had undergone 7 immortal tribulations. They were completely capable of tearing apart the seal as time passed. The people of the Azure Divine Realm were furious, but unfortunately they were powerless to stop them. They had already gone all out to stop the sub-immortals of the two great cosmoses. This meant that they had to stop the 4 sub-immortals. Well done. The Holy Light Great Cosmos will remember this. An expert from the Holy Light Great Cosmos laughed. Whoosh. Suddenly, a sword light slashed out from the void and slashed toward one of the celestial race elders. However, the celestial race elder was already prepared. In such a battlefield, it was impossible not to pay attention to their surroundings. Otherwise they wouldn't even know how they died. The moment the sword light appeared, the celestial race elder sensed it. The celestial race elder roared and resisted with all his strength. However, the sword light was extremely terrifying and powerful. Even though the celestial race elder reacted in time, he couldn't resist it and was sent flying. A sword mark appeared on his chest, almost cleaving him in half. Then, a figure appeared with a battle sword in hand and slashed at the other 3 celestial race elders. The sword light whistled. It was so powerful that the 3 celestial race elders had no choice but to stop attacking the seal and block it. Boom, boom, boom. After 3 consecutive explosions, the 3 celestial race elders retreated. The figure also drifted backward. "Han Ming, it's you?" One of the celestial race elders roared. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Han Ming? The master of the heavenly court? Lu Ming took a closer look and indeed saw that the figure was indeed the master of the heavenly court, Han Ming. Han Ming had disappeared since they parted ways back then. It had been more than 10,000 years and he had finally reappeared. Han Ming's current state was much stronger than before. His aura was as oppressive as a stormy sea. He was facing 4 7th tribulation sub-immortals of the celestial race alone. Lu Ming really wanted to rush out and ask Han Ming why he had given him the Chaos Ring back then. Did he already know that the Chaos Ring was a fragment of the heart of the universe? All 4 of you old dogs have come out. The demi-human tribe has sent out all their experts. Fine, I'll kill you 4 today. Han Ming grinned. He was very domineering. Han Ming, you were seriously injured and on the verge of death back then. Although you've recovered a little, you've only recovered to the level of a 6th tribulation sub-immortal. The 4 of us are 7th tribulation sub-immortals. Do you think you can kill the 4 of us? One of the celestial race elders sneered. So what if I'm a 6th tribulation sub-immortal? It's enough to kill you 4 old dogs. If it weren't for the Yi Immortal back then, I would have chopped off your heads. Han Ming smiled contemptuously and suddenly attacked. Chapter 5191. Han Ming looked like a middle-aged man. He was burly and had a domineering aura. He was wearing armor and holding a battle sword. His aura was shocking. Lu Ming recognized that the battle sword and armor on Han Ming's body were one of the 4 treasures of the heavenly court. They were as famous as the Origin Stone and the Chaos Ring. Back then, Han Ming had taken the other 3 treasures and left the Chaos Ring to Lu Ming. The armor and sword were called the 9 Tribulation Armor and 9 Tribulation Sword. Lu Ming couldn't help but guess. Could it be a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal weapon? Han Ming shouldn't have reached the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal realm when he was at his peak. If it was a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal weapon, it should have been dug out from some ruins. Han Ming was very powerful. He was only a 6th Tribulation Subimmortal now, but he didn't care about facing the 4 7th Tribulation Subimmortals of the heavenly human race. The 4 7th Tribulation Subimmortals of the heavenly human race didn't dare to be careless. They joined forces and fought against Han Ming. They knew that Han Ming was a 7th Tribulation Subimmortal like them when he was at his peak. However, Han Ming was too strong. They were too weak in a battle of the same level. Back then, they could suppress and almost kill Han Ming because of the strongest patriarch of the heavenly human race, Yi Immortal. They also cooperated with the other experts. The heavenly human race had more than 4 7th Tribulation Subimmortals at their peak. They had more than a dozen 7th Tribulation Subimmortals, but Han Ming still killed 3 of them and destroyed a heavenly palace. It was a heavy loss. Now, the heavenly human race only had 4 7th Tribulation Subimmortals left. They were the strongest force. They were traumatized by Han Ming. Even though Han Ming's cultivation was lower than theirs, they still used their full strength. For a time, the 2 sides were locked in a fierce battle. Han Ming was strong enough, but he had been seriously injured back then and was far from his peak. He could barely be considered a 6th Tribulation Subimmortal. It was very difficult for him to suppress the 4 of them. The people from the Nether River Great Cosmos and the Holy Light Great Cosmos came quite early. Fortunately, the Heart of the Universe fragment hasn't fallen into their hands. We still have a chance. Voices echoed in the void. Then the void trembled and figures appeared. Figures appeared out of nowhere around the Azure Divine Realm. There were a total of 6 figures. His entire body was surrounded by tribulation light. His aura was shocking and incomparably powerful. It could be seen that 3 of the figures were skeletons. 1 was humanoid and the other 2 were beast skeletons. The other 3 figures were shrouded in green light. They wore green robes and looked like immortals. Jade Clear Great Cosmos, Skeleton Great Cosmos. The 3 primogenitors of the Ashen Azure Godly Realm and the others recognized the 6 figures. Especially the 3 primogenitors, their hearts sank. These 6 figures were all 9th Tribulation Subimmortals. Clearly, the mighty figures behind the Jade Clear Great Cosmos and the Skeleton Great Cosmos had also deduced this and sent 9th Tribulation Subimmortals to arrive first. Damn it! The experts of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos and the Nether River Great Cosmos roared inwardly. Their expressions were ugly as they were very unhappy. With the arrival of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos and the Skeletal Great Cosmos, the competition had intensified. The difficulty of obtaining the fragment of the Heart of the Universe had increased greatly. Previously there had only been 2 competing, but now there were 4. Since you guys are here, why aren't you attacking? Break the seal first and deal with the remnants of the primitive universe. Then, we can discuss how to distribute the fragment of the Heart of the Universe. A 9th Tribulation Subimmortal from the Nether River Great Cosmos shouted coldly. You don't have to say anything. A middle-aged man from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos replied coldly. Then he waved his hand and a green light flew out. It was a terrifying sword light that slashed toward the gap in the seal. Originally, no one had interfered, and the gap in the seal had been slowly recovering. Now the green sword light slashed down, and the seal shook violently. The gap was torn open and the gap grew larger. Break the seal first, said an existence from the Skeleton Great Cosmos. A being from the Great Bone Cosmos said and reached out with a bony claw to grab the seal. The 6th 9th Tribulation Subimmortals were too powerful. They used the gap in the seal as a breakthrough point and kept expanding it. Slowly the gap expanded to cover the entire seal. Break! Finally, the 6th 9th Tribulation Subimmortals shouted, and their attacks instantly erupted. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out, and the seal finally couldn't take it anymore. It kept exploding and slowly turned into a rain of light that dissipated into the void. The seal had been completely broken. Many people from the Azure Divine Realm revealed looks of despair. The seal had been broken and the other party had too many experts. How could they fight? They would only be defeated in the end. Fight it out with them. Many people roared and even more people burned their origin roots and fought with their lives on the line. Since they couldn't escape death in the end, they might as well die with a bang. Even if they died, they had to make those people from the Outerverse pay the price. In the Tsangqing Godly Realm, more than 1,000 Tsangqing Godly Realm experts were doing their best to conjure the large array formation. It It was really effective. In the Sacred Light Great Cosmos and the Underworld River Great Cosmos, some of the weaker cultivators were killed by the array formation. However, the Azure Divine Realm also paid a price. The array shook and suffered a backlash. In an instant, dozens of experts exploded, and their bodies and souls were destroyed. The 6th Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals stood in the void, overlooking the entire battlefield. Among them, the humanoid skeleton from the Bone Great Cosmos looked at Han Ming with disgust. His body is filled with the aura of the universe. Could it be the power of the universe? The will of the universe is unwilling to accept this and still wants to resist. Kill. The humanoid skeleton shouted coldly. He held a bone knife that was golden in color and seemed to be made from the ribs of some kind of creature. The bone knife slashed out and a terrifying golden blade light slashed at Han Ming. Han Ming's expression changed drastically, and he frantically retreated. His figure flashed rapidly, trying to avoid the blade light. However, this was an attack from a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. It was too strong, far stronger than Han Ming's. Even at his peak, the difference was still huge. The blade light seemed to have locked onto Han Ming. No matter how Han Ming dodged, he couldn't avoid it. In an instant, the blade light appeared not far from Han Ming. Han Ming shouted and erupted with all his strength, pushing his combat power to the peak. A round pearl flew out of his forehead. It was the Life Spirit Stone. The Life Spirit Stone rapidly expanded and blocked in front of Han Ming. Clang. The blade light slashed at the Life Spirit Stone. With a bang, the Life Spirit Stone exploded into pieces, turning into a rain of light that flew back into Han Ming's body. However, the blade light wasn't blocked. It continued to slash at Han Ming. The moment the Life Spirit Stone flew out, Han Ming slashed with all his strength. After the Life Spirit Stone shattered, the 9 Tribulation sword slashed at the blade light. Buzz. The 9 Tribulation sword vibrated violently. Han Ming's body retreated rapidly and he vomited blood. The terrifying power of the golden blade light hit Han Ming's body, but the 9 Tribulation's armor blocked it, saving Han Ming's life. However, the terrifying power still penetrated the 9 Tribulation's armor and severely injured Han Ming. Chapter 5192. Han Ming was severely injured in one move. This was the battle prowess of a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. Every tribulation would increase one's battle prowess qualitatively. So you have a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal weapon. No wonder you can block my attack. The humanoid skeleton from the Great Bones Cosmos said. He didn't continue attacking. It was already embarrassing that he couldn't kill a 6th Tribulation sub-immortal in one move. He didn't have the face to continue attacking. However, Han Ming was already severely injured. The 4 old fellows from the heavenly human race were enough to deal with him. Sure enough, the 4 old fellows from the heavenly human race attacked Han Ming. Han Ming was forced to retreat. He could only barely protect himself. If this dragged on, he would be in danger. Join forces with us to kill these remnant immortals. The old man from the Great Bones Cosmos said. The remnant immortals of the old era shouldn't have stayed in this era. They should have disappeared with the destruction of the heart of the universe. What's the point of living until now? I'll send you all on your way. The humanoid skeleton from the Great Bones Cosmos was very domineering. He held a bone blade and attacked the strongest ancestor of the Ashen Azure godly realm. However, just as he was about to attack, he immediately stopped and looked up. Your opponent is me. A long roar came from above. The void cracked open, and a claw reached out and grabbed the humanoid skeleton from the Great Bones Cosmos. It was like a bird's claw. It was like a phoenix's claw. The humanoid skeleton's soul light jumped in his eye sockets as he felt a fatal threat. He shouted and slashed out with his golden bone blade. In an instant, the golden bone blade rapidly expanded and slashed at the claw. However, there was a sound of metal clashing and sparks flying. Then, the humanoid skeleton's figure retreated rapidly. The golden blade in his hand buzzed non-stop, and the soul fire in his eye sockets dimmed. Clearly, the humanoid skeleton was at a disadvantage in this attack. The other 9th Tribulation sub-immortals were shocked. To be able to suppress a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal from the Great Bones Cosmos, what kind of expert was this? Another remnant immortal. The humanoid skeleton whispered. Whoosh. The void cracked open and a giant bird appeared. Phoenix. It was a gigantic phoenix. When it spread its wings, it was as large as a continent. It was about to envelop the entire Azure Divine Realm. The great desolate Aeon demon race, the Phoenix race. To think that the Phoenix race still has a remnant immortal alive. Someone whispered. It's you, you're still alive. The old woman in the Azure Divine Realm was pleasantly surprised when she saw the phoenix. They were all immortal Dao experts from the Great Wastelands continent, so they naturally knew each other. It was just that they had long thought that he had died in battle back then. Unexpectedly, he was still alive. I was lucky enough to survive and hid in the Thousand Monster Mountain. I woke up not long ago. The great desolate phoenix explained. Bang bang bang, behind the primordial phoenix, the void continued to explode as more than 10 figures appeared consecutively. All of them were primordial demons and their bodies were as huge as stars. The aura of one of the green bulls was exceptionally terrifying. It was actually not any weaker than the primordial phoenix. Another crippled immortal. 2 primordial chaos demon immortals. The other demons were all sub-immortal existences. It's the primordial demon race of the myriad demon mountain. In the distance, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Back then, in order to save Huang Ling, he had entered the Thousand Monster Mountain, walked through the Thousand Monster Path and obtained the Demon King the Arch Runes. He had never thought that there would be so many powerful demons living in the Thousand Monster Mountain. But it was normal. When Lu Ming entered the Thousand Monster Mountain, it was still the origin tribulation and the truly powerful demons were all in a deep sleep. It was very similar to the situation in the Azure Divine Realm. Great, I didn't expect the primordial demon race to still have an overlord. Lu Song and the others were quite excited. The primordial demon race was also a living being of the primordial universe. In the primordial continent era, they were known as the 3 strongest races together with the human race and the Wu people. Although they were not as strong as the human race, their overall strength was actually not much weaker. The reason why the human race could suppress the magi and demons was mainly because their peak strength was too strong. The 3 human kings of the human race were invincible and suppressed the world. In the entire demon race, there was only one who could be on par with the 3 human kings of the human race. The Wu people were the same. You guys go and help the human race. Leave these 6 guys to us. The primordial phoenix instructed the other demons. Yes. More than a dozen subimmortal demons rushed to the Azure Divine Realm to help the human race experts fight the subimmortal experts of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos and the Nether River Great Cosmos. Without a 9th Tribulation subimmortal, it would be very difficult to fight against a 9th Tribulation subimmortal. You want to fight against us with just 2 remnant immortals? The tough bones of the skeleton Great Cosmos were very domineering as they spoke coldly. When I was at my peak, I could swallow the 6 of you in one gulp. The primordial phoenix roared and took the initiative to attack. It spread its wings and enveloped the 3 9th Tribulation subimmortals of the skeleton Great Cosmos. Roar. The green bull roared and spat out a huge beam of light toward the 3 9th Tribulation subimmortals of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos. An even more terrifying battle erupted. This was an extremely terrifying battle. There were 13 9th Tribulation subimmortals participating in the battle, including 5 remnant immortals. However, although the primordial demon race had joined in, the situation was still very unfavorable for the primordial universe. There were too many experts in the outerverse. The 2 demon immortals of the primordial demon race were barely able to deal with the 3 9th Tribulation subimmortals. The more dangerous one was Han Ming. He had been severely injured by one move and was now facing the 4 great experts of the heavenly human race. He was in imminent danger. The 5 remnant immortals were not having a good time either. A few minutes later, poof, the green bull was struck by a green sword beam. One of his legs was almost chopped off and blood splattered everywhere. His immortal body has also degenerated. Today we will slaughter an immortal. The Jade Clear Great Cosmos expert shouted. Brr. The green bull roared and his voice shook the sky. If he was at his peak, 3 9th Tribulation subimmortals would only be a matter of one move. Unfortunately, with the shattering of the primordial universe's core, his cultivation level had dropped. Not only that, but after a long time, his immortal body had also degenerated and was no longer sturdy. Otherwise, even if an immortal Dao existence's cultivation level dropped, their immortal body would still be sturdy and indestructible. A 9th Tribulation subimmortal would not be able to injure it. But now, their immortal bodies had degenerated and were not much stronger than subimmortals. From this, it could be seen how much the shattering of the primordial universe's core affected immortal Dao experts. It affected almost all aspects. The green bull was injured and gradually lost. Although the primordial phoenix was stronger, she could only barely contend against 3 9th Tribulation subimmortals and could not help. It was the same for the 3 primogenitors of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm. If this continued, once the green bull was defeated, the other 9th Tribulation subimmortals would be freed up and the others would be in danger. In the Ashen Azure Divine Realm, the battle between ordinary subimmortals and origins was even more tragic. With the addition of more than 10 subimmortals of the demon race, the Ashen Azure Divine Realm barely stabilized the situation, but the situation was still not good. However, there were still people who died from the overheating of their origin roots. Chapter 5193. This was irreversible. They had set up a grand formation, and only by operating the grand formation at full power would they be able to fight against a subimmortal. However, the backlash from the grand formation was not something that ordinary origins could contend against. Up to now, over 100 origins had died in the Tsangqing Divine Realm. In addition, the ordinary subimmortals of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos and the Bone Great Cosmos had yet to appear. Once they did, the situation would be even worse. Bang bang bang. At this moment, a few more origins could not withstand the backlash and their bodies exploded. Their souls were destroyed. Ninth uncle. Sixth uncle. Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others cried out in grief. They clenched their fists tightly and trembled all over. Some of those who died in battle were their seniors, but they could do nothing as they watched their loved ones die in battle. They wanted nothing more than to charge out and fight. However, they did not lose their minds. They knew that with their combat strength, they would only die even if they charged out. They would not be of any use in the battle. They hated themselves and knew why they were so weak. Why are there no ninth tribulation subimmortals in the Tsangqing Divine Realm? Also, why are there so few subimmortals? Lu Ming asked. Although he was extremely furious, he managed to control himself. At the same time, he found it very strange. There was not a single ninth tribulation subimmortal in the Tsangqing Divine Realm. Moreover, there were only a dozen subimmortals, which was much fewer than he had imagined. There were definitely more subimmortals in the various forbidden lands. In the earliest days, there were ninth tribulation subimmortals in the Azure Divine Realm. There were also more subimmortals of other levels. However, over the long years, many subimmortals failed their tribulations and died under the immortal tribulation. Because the conditions did not allow for it, ninth tribulation subimmortals could not become immortal. There were only 2 ninth tribulation subimmortals who forcefully knocked on the immortal tribulation and died in the end. Lu Song explained. It's all because the Tsangqing Divine Realm has been sealed. They can't obtain top-grade spiritual herbs to refine their bodies and souls. As a result, their bodies and souls are not strong. Naturally, it's difficult for them to pass the immortal tribulation. At the same time, reciprocity existences don't dare to undergo the immortal's tribulation because they lack resources. Once they undergo the immortal's tribulation, only death awaits them. As a result, many powerful prodigies remain at peak reciprocity for their entire lives. Yao Yi explained. Lu Ming was silent. It had to be said that this was a kind of tragedy. In order to pass the immortal tribulation, both the physical body and the soul were indispensable. However, the Azure Divine Realm was sealed, and it lacked these 2 kinds of spiritual essences. It was too slow to rely on oneself to slowly refine it. It was simply insufficient. As a result, many subimmortals failed their immortal tribulation and died. Those who could succeed and survive were few and far between. Because of this, the subsequent essences did not dare to undergo the immortal tribulation. In the history of the Azure Divine Realm, it wasn't as if no one had forcefully transcended the immortal tribulation. Those prodigies were unwilling to be trapped at peak reciprocity forever, so they forcefully underwent the immortal tribulation and died in the end. As a result, there were fewer and fewer subimmortals in the Azure Divine Realm. Up until now, there were only a dozen or so. The situation of the primordial world demons was similar. They were communicating through spiritual sense, but their eyes were fixed on the battlefield. They were becoming more and more nervous. The situation was becoming more and more unfavorable for the primitive universe. Especially Han Ming and Azure Ox, they were the most dangerous. Han Ming was struck in the heart by a heavenly human elder. Even with the protection of the 9 tribulation armor, he could not completely block it. The sword chi entered his body and almost tore his body apart. Han Ming wanted to retreat, but he was stopped by another heavenly human elder. Han Ming, I failed to kill you back then. Today I'll send you on your way. Kill. The 4 heavenly human elders said coldly. Their killing intent was like a knife as they attacked Han Ming wildly. You failed to kill me back then. Don't even think about killing me today. Han Ming roared as his energy surged. His body was recovering rapidly. Han Ming was also a forbidden body. His vitality was extremely strong and his recovery speed was astonishing. Even if he was severely injured, it was impossible to kill him immediately. On the other side, Azure Ox was also in an extremely bad situation. His combat strength was inferior to the Phoenix and the strongest patriarch of the Azure Divine Realm because his cultivation at his peak was far inferior to them. At this moment he was besieged by 3 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos. There were already a dozen wounds on his body. His aura was getting weaker and weaker. If this continued, it was only a matter of time before he was defeated. Some sub-immortal demons howled in grief. Azure Ox was a perfected immortal, but he had fallen to such a state. Was he really going to die here? How many perfected immortals had been killed by sub-immortals since ancient times? It was extremely rare. This was a kind of tragedy. Even if I die, I'll drag you guys down with me. Azure Ox roared. His body was covered in bloody light as his huge body became even more muscular. Swoosh. Blood-red smoke came out of the young man's nose. His combat strength increased tremendously. His 2 ox horns were like heavenly blades as he slashed out. A 9th Tribulation sub-immortal of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos vomited blood and retreated rapidly. Then, with a collision, another expert was sent flying. Azure Ox was going all out. He was burning his immortal blood without any regard for the consequences. The aftereffects were huge. Even if he didn't die in this battle, it might be difficult for him to recover to the immortal Tao realm in the future. Damn it, the 3 Jade Clear Great Cosmos experts growled. Their faces were gloomy and fearful. Azure Ox was a true immortal Tao expert when he was at his peak. If he went all out, even if they could kill the young man in the end, it was very likely that the young man would drag 1 or 2 of them down with him. Who would want to be the scapegoat? They weren't the only ones. The other 9th Tribulation sub-immortals also had this concern. Their opponents were all incomplete immortals. It was normal for them to drag them down when they had no way out. Even if they could kill all these incomplete immortals in the end, they would suffer heavy losses. No one wanted to be the scapegoat. Do you guys still want to watch the show? The elder from the Sacred Light Great Cosmos suddenly shouted. Do you think we're fools? If we don't make a move, we can forget about fighting for the fragment of the heart of the universe. An expert from the Bone Great Cosmos also shouted coldly. Many people in the Azure Divine Realm, including Lu Ming, Lu Song, and the others, narrowed their eyes. They had a bad feeling in their hearts. Could there be experts hiding in the dark? I think we should deal with the people in the primitive universe first before deciding on the matter of the fragment of the heart of the universe. Everyone, what do you think? A voice suddenly sounded in the empty void of the universe. Sure. Okay. Several voices responded in the void. The next moment, the void vibrated and many figures appeared. 1, 2, 3, there were a total of more than 10 figures. Every figure was shrouded in a thick layer of light, and their appearances couldn't be seen clearly. It could only be roughly seen that there were people in both the Yang world and the Yin world. They had one thing in common: they were powerful. Every single one of them had a terrifying aura. 9th Tribulation sub-immortals. Chapter 5194. The dozen or so figures that appeared behind them were all sub-immortals of the 9th Tribulation. The reason for that was because the auras they emanated were very similar to those of the 9th Tribulation sub-immortals from before. 9th Tribulation sub-immortals were rarely seen. They were all in seclusion, preparing to open the immortal gate. Now that so many of them had appeared, it was truly terrifying. From this, it could be seen how attractive the great desolate universe was. After all, it had been the 11th ranked great cosmos of the Yang realm at its peak. The treasures left behind were too attractive. If it weren't for the fact that true immortals couldn't descend, even true immortals would have come. Although only 2 people from the top 10 great cosmoses of the Yang realm and the Yin realm had come, who knew if there were experts from the great cosmoses of the higher great cosmoses who had come and concealed their identities? No one could say for sure. For example, the dozen or so people were shrouded in light. Their appearances could not be seen clearly. Perhaps there were even stronger universe elites among them. Most of the people behind him didn't come here because they had received a warning from the mighty figures behind them. It was mainly because the battle here had caused too much of a commotion. More than 10 9th Tribulation sub-immortals were risking their lives to fight. Even from the other side of the universe, they could sense that these people had rushed over because of the great battle. After they arrived, they didn't make a move. They originally had the idea of sitting on top of the mountain and watching the tigers fight. However, since he had been pointed out, he might as well show himself. The experts of the Sacred Light Great Cosmos, Jade Clear Great Cosmos, Skeleton Great Cosmos, and Styx River Great Cosmos weren't fools. They wouldn't give them a chance to reap the benefits. All of them are ninth tribulation subimmortals. How could this be? No. Many origins and even subimmortals of the Azure Divine Realm roared in despair. The 13 ninth tribulation subimmortals of the 4 universes were already enough to suppress the 5 incomplete immortals of the human and demon races. How could they fight with more than a dozen ninth tribulation subimmortals? There was no doubt about it. Despair filled the hearts of everyone in the primitive universe. The number of experts in the outer verse was endless. Most importantly, too many great cosmoses had come. In the entire universe ocean, there were tens of thousands of great universes. How many great universes had come here? There were too many. Perhaps this was not all. Who knew if there were any more experts hiding in the dark or if there were any more experts on the way? How were they supposed to fight? Could it be that the fate of the primitive universe had already been decided? Were they destined to not be able to protect the fragment of the heart of the universe? Were they destined to walk towards the end of the age of chaos? Were they destined to completely decline until they disappeared into the boundless primal chaos? They were unwilling? But what could he do even if he was unwilling? Lu Ming, Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others clenched their fists. Their eyes were bloodshot, and they wished they could rush out and join the battle. However, they were too weak. What was the point of rushing out? A ninth tribulation subimmortal could kill them with a single breath. It wouldn't affect the battle at all. Damn it. If the 3 sovereign personages were still alive, how could these people dare to be so arrogant? Lu Song growled, his body trembling. Boom. As soon as Sun Song said that, an explosion occurred somewhere in the void and a massive fist blasted towards one of the 3 powerhouses from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos. The ninth tribulation subimmortal was shocked. He hurriedly abandoned the green bull and blocked with all his strength. But he couldn't stop it. The attack in defense of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos ninth tribulation subimmortal crumbled instantly. Then the huge fist landed on his body. That person screamed miserably as his body exploded with a bang. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. What? Everyone present, including the subimmortals and the 5 incomplete immortals, was shocked. What kind of battle prowess was this to be able to destroy a ninth tribulation subimmortal with one punch? Immortal? Impossible. The true power of the immortal Tao couldn't appear in the current primitive universe. Otherwise, the entire universe would be completely destroyed. Whoosh. That Jade Clear Great Cosmos ninth tribulation subimmortal wasn't dead yet. His flesh and blood flew into the distance and gathered together. Although he wasn't dead, he was severely injured and his aura was extremely weak. He stared straight ahead at the place where the fist had appeared. At that moment, a figure appeared in the void. It was a middle-aged man with a burly figure. He stood there casually and gave people the illusion that he was undefeatable. Human Monarch. Human Monarch Shen Yuan. The people of the Azure Divine Realm shouted excitedly. Lu Ming, Lu Song and the others were also excited and almost jumped up. However, Lu Ming calmed down very quickly. It was the body of the human monarch, not the human monarch. Or rather, the human monarch. Back when he fought with Teak, the human monarch's white bone body was destroyed and his soul entered the human monarch's body. Now that he had reappeared, could it be that the human monarch's body had merged with the human monarch's body? Thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind. Human Monarch Shen Yuan. It's the human monarch. The ninth tribulation subimmortals of the outer verse were shocked and their hair stood on end. A chill went from the soles of their feet to the top of their heads. They subconsciously wanted to escape. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. Although most of them hadn't seen human monarch Shen Yuan, who hadn't heard of him. He was a peak powerhouse in the entire cosmic sea. Even in the top 10 great cosmoses of the world of the living like the Sacred Light Great Cosmos and the Jade Clear Great Cosmos, there were only a handful of people who could match up to human monarch Shen Yuan. It was too easy to kill them. No, it's not the real human monarch. Human monarch Shen Yuan died a long time ago. When he fought with Teak previously, it was only instinctive. He couldn't unleash much power at all. An expert of the Bone Great Cosmos shouted. That's right. The powerhouse behind me has divined that human monarch Shen Yuan has completely fallen and didn't leave behind a trace. In order to seal Teak, he expended a lot of energy. Now that the human monarch's soul has entered his body, it has fallen below the immortal Tao and is nothing to be afraid of. The ninth tribulation subimmortal of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos, whose body had been destroyed, also shouted. The human monarch was very strong when he was alive. His cultivation far surpassed ordinary true immortals and had reached the immortal Tao monarch realm. However, no matter how strong he was, as long as he was in the primitive universe, his realm would fall. Everyone was relieved. There was nothing to be afraid of. Those who dare to seize the primitive universe core will be killed without mercy. The human monarch's body spoke. His voice wasn't loud, but there was a terrifying majesty that made people not dare to underestimate him. Human monarch, it's really you. An expert shrouded in multicolored light spoke. His aura was oppressive and he wasn't afraid at all. He even stepped forward with strong battle intent. Today I'll catch all of you in one fell swoop. Another expert shrouded in multicolored light stepped forward. He was an expert of the Yin world. Everyone, human monarch Shen Yuan has already fallen. Now, only the human monarch's soul has entered his body. His realm is the same as ours, so what's there to be afraid of? Let's attack together and destroy him. An expert of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos shouted. That's right, attack. Boom, boom, boom. Powerful existences stepped forward and forced their way toward the human monarch's body. Kill? The human monarch's body, or more accurately, the human monarch, shouted and punched out, targeting one of the experts. Chapter 5195. Boom. The junior human king had entered the body of the master human king, and his strength was astonishing. After a period of adjustment and recovery, he was even stronger than when he fought against D. Quebec. Although the ninth tribulation subimmortal attacked with all his might, he was still no match for the junior human king. Poof. The junior human king's fist directly pierced through the subimmortal's body and tore it apart. However, it was really difficult for a ninth tribulation subimmortal to die. After going through 9 immortal tribulations, it could be said that they had survived 9 death tribulations and had a trace of the characteristics of a true immortal. His body turned into a rain of light and condensed not far away. However, like the one from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos, he was severely injured and his aura was weak. Attack, don't let him target one person. Kill. In an instant, at least 6 subimmortals attacked the junior human king together. No matter how strong the junior human king was, he still faced great pressure when facing 6 ninth tribulation subimmortals. If it was one-on-one, he could crush his opponent and then take advantage of the situation to attack wildly. It was not difficult to completely destroy one person. However, when facing a siege from so many people, he could not concentrate his strength to deal with one person. He would be severely disrupted. When he wanted to concentrate his strength to deal with one person, the others would attack to stop him. After all, he had fallen in cultivation. To be precise, he was a ninth tribulation subimmortal. Like the others, he relied on the strength of the human king's body to crush experts of the same level. The main thing was that this was the human king's body and not his own. He could not use it freely and could not use many techniques. He could only use brute force. The 6 ninth tribulation subimmortals temporarily delayed the junior human king. Deal with the others first, then work together to deal with the junior human king. Someone spoke, planning to deal with the other 5 incomplete immortals. Relatively speaking, the other 5 incomplete immortals were easier to deal with because their immortal bodies had already degenerated. It was not difficult to kill them. The junior human king's body was the human king's body. Although it had degenerated a little due to the suppression of teak, the human king was too strong when he was alive. His body was tough and indestructible. It was too difficult to destroy it. They could only kill the other incomplete immortals first and then concentrate their strength to deal with the junior human king. They could use soul attacks to destroy the junior human king's soul. The other subimmortals were about to attack and help the Jade Clear Great Cosmos to destroy the 5 incomplete immortals. However, at this moment all the 9th tribulation subimmortals suddenly stopped as they felt a sense of danger. Who? All of a sudden, a 9th tribulation subimmortal shouted and slapped a palm toward a certain spot in the void. Boom. The void exploded and turned into chaos. A palm stretched out from the chaos. It was a woman's palm. The palm was pure white and her fingers were like scallions. It was extremely beautiful. The pure white palm collided with the palm of the 9 tribulation subimmortal, and an earth-shattering explosion erupted. With the 2 palms as the center, the void within 100 million li exploded. The destructive force howled and everything was in chaos. The 9th tribulation subimmortal grunted and retreated rapidly. One could see that his palm, including his entire arm, was covered in cracks like porcelain. That person spat out a large mouthful of blood, his face filled with shock. The other subimmortals were also shocked. Who was it? Could it be another crippled immortal? His battle prowess was so terrifying. Ahead, the primal chaos surged and a figure appeared. It was a woman. Her long black dress fluttered in the wind. Her appearance was exceptional and her style was peerless. Senior Fei Huang. Lu Ming could not help but exclaim. It was actually Fei Huang. The one who attacked just now was actually Fei Huang. She had injured a ninth tribulation subimmortal with one palm. Her combat strength was simply unimaginable. During the Heaven Destroyer era, Fei Huang's combat strength was barely comparable to the Origin power. At that time, Senior Fei Huang was just a clone. Her main body had been cultivating in a mysterious place. This must be Senior Fei Huang's true body, but her strength is too strong. Lu Ming's mind raced, but he was still shocked. Of course, he did not know that Fei Huang and Tang Feng had been cultivating in a forbidden land for the past 10,000 years. They had experienced death tribulations, but their improvement was also great, and they had continuously broken through. Fei Huang. Lu Song and the others were surprised. They had never heard of this name before. I know a senior in the Eastern Universe. Lu Ming quickly explained. 8th Tribulation Subimmortal. The 9th Tribulation Subimmortals of the Outerverse completely covered Fei Huang with their spiritual senses and immediately saw through her cultivation. She was only an 8th Tribulation Subimmortal. This was beyond their expectations. In their opinion, the person who injured a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal with one palm was at least a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal or even a broken immortal. Otherwise, how could they have such combat strength? They did not expect that it was just an 8th Tribulation Subimmortal. This was a little terrifying. Especially the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal who was injured by Fei Huang just now. His face was gloomy, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. It's just an 8th Tribulation Subimmortal. No matter how strong she is, how strong can she be? Kill. The other 9th Tribulation Subimmortal was enveloped by 9 cold halos. He was an expert from the Yin world. He held a battle axe in his hand and swung it at Fei Huang. Fei Huang stood there motionless and she had no intention of fighting back. In an instant the axe approached Fei Huang. Seeing that it was about to hit her, Fei Huang still did not move. Lu Ming, Lu Song, and the others could not help but feel their hearts skip a beat. Even the 3 primogenitors of the Azure Divine Realm and the 2 demonic immortals of the demon race felt their hearts skip a beat. They did not know Fei Huang, but they could tell that Fei Huang was a living being of the primitive universe. In the primitive universe, there was actually an 8th Tribulation Subimmortal in addition to them. This was beyond their expectations. One had to know that in the past the primitive universe was in ruins, and the laws of order were chaotic. The cultivation conditions were too poor. Although it later recovered, it faced the Great Tribulation. In other words, it was simply a miracle to be able to cultivate to an 8th Tribulation Subimmortal in such a cultivation environment. There was also Han Ming. They could tell that Han Ming should be a 7th Tribulation Subimmortal when he was at his peak. These people of the later generations were shockingly talented. But why didn't they dodge? Why didn't they fight back? They were anxious and wanted to help, but how could they make it in time? Even if they could make it in time, they were entangled and could not even take care of themselves. How could they have the strength to spare? Clang. The sound of a sword rang through the void as if it came from ancient times. Then a sword light flew out from behind Fei Huang. It was like a flying immortal. It was dazzling, fast, and unstoppable. Clang. The sword light slashed on the axe and the axe shook violently. Countless tiny sword chi flowed along the axe and rushed toward the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal. The 9th Tribulation Subimmortal's expression changed drastically. He realized that he could not hold the battle axe. This battle axe was a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal weapon. It was connected to his life and had gone through 9 immortal tribulations together. It was simply a part of his body. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible to escape. However, the power of that sword light was too strong. It was useless even if he tried his best to resist. With a buzz, the battle axe flew out horizontally. However, the sword light did not stop and slashed down on the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal's head. Poof! The sword light flashed, and the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal's body stiffened. His eyes were filled with disbelief. "I can't accept this," the 9th Tribulation Subimmortal roared. Before he finished speaking, endless sword chi rushed out of his body and tore him into pieces. His origin, root, and soul were also turned into nothingness in the sword chi. Chapter 5196. His body and soul were destroyed. A 9th Tribulation Subimmortal was killed by a single sword strike, his body and soul destroyed. Impossible? Everyone's first reaction was disbelief. It was impossible. But the truth was right in front of them and they had no choice but to believe it. This was a 9th Tribulation Subimmortal who had survived the 9 immortal tribulations. He was only one step away from transcending and becoming an immortal. But now he was killed by a single sword strike. This was the first Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal to die since the start of this battle. Previously, Junior Human King had not been able to kill a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal. Although he had torn the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal apart, he had not completely killed him. But now, a sword light had completely obliterated a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal. Some of the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals in the Outerverse felt a chill in their hearts. At this moment they saw the true appearance of that sword light. It was a long sword. The sword was simple and unadorned, and it was filled with tribulation light. This was a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal weapon. Whoosh! The long sword flew into a person's hand. This was a young man in his 20s. He had a tall and straight figure, sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. There was an indescribable domineering aura between his brows. This person walked step by step through the air from behind Fei Huang. Sword Ancestor, it's the Sword Ancestor. Lu Ming couldn't help but get excited. How could he not know this person, although it was the first time he had seen him in person? But he had long known this person's appearance. The Sword Ancestor, Tang Feng, was Xian Yinqing's father in his previous life. Speaking of which, he could be considered his father-in-law. Ever since he came into contact with the people of the Heaven Destroyer, he often heard people mention the Sword Ancestor. When everyone mentioned him, their faces were full of reverence. Because he was a legend. Like Lu Ming, he walked out of a small world and rose against the heavens, establishing the Heaven Destroyer to fight against the Heavenly Palace. It had to be said that the situation at that time was even more difficult than the situation that Lu Ming faced at the beginning. Because at that time, Tang Feng, Fei Huang, and the others had no backing and no one to support them. They could only fight against the Heavenly Palace alone. Unlike Lu Ming, at least he had the Heaven Destroyer behind him. Therefore, the Sword Ancestor Tang Feng also paid an unimaginable price. Of his 2 wives, one was dead and the other was injured. His 2 daughters had also died on the battlefield. If it weren't for the reincarnation substance, Xian Yinqing and Tang Jun wouldn't have been able to reappear. Lu Ming had always admired this legendary figure, but he had never been able to see him in person. Who would have thought that they would meet under such circumstances? Furthermore, he had managed to kill a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal right from the start, shocking everyone present. Taboo Sword Ancestor Tang Feng. The 4 elders of the heavenly human tribe turned pale with fright. Their eyes were filled with fear. They instinctively feared the Sword Ancestor. Especially now, he could actually kill a 9 Tribulation sub-immortal. This was simply unbelievable. The last time he saw Tang Feng was clearly a 5 Tribulation sub-immortal. How many years had it been? How could he have improved so quickly? They were not mistaken. The aura that Tang Feng emitted had clearly reached the level of a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. Back when he was a 5th Tribulation sub-immortal, his battle prowess was already shocking. Although they were 7th Tribulation sub-immortals, they were no match for him. Now that he had become a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal, how strong would he be? They were so shocked that their attacks were a little chaotic, giving Han Ming a chance to catch his breath. Is this the taboo body that appeared after me? It's really ridiculously strong. Even Han Ming sighed. This kind of battle prowess seemed to be, possibly, definitely, stronger than him. Today all of you shall be annihilated. The Sword Ancestor, Tang Feng, only had this one sentence when he appeared. Before he finished speaking, he attacked again. Another dazzling sword light slashed toward another 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. This 9th Tribulation sub-immortal was shocked. He instantly raised his strength to the maximum and dodged with all his might. At the same time, he also put up 36 layers of defense. However, the sword light seemed to have locked onto him. No matter how he dodged, it was useless. Poof. In the next moment, he was hit by the sword light. All 36 layers of defense were pierced through. In the end, the sword light slashed on his armor. The armor only whispered for an instant before it was pierced through. This person screamed as his body flew out horizontally and kept vomiting blood. One could see sword chi constantly rushing out of his body. His flesh and blood splattered everywhere. It was a tragic sight. However, in the end he resisted and did not die. Although he did not die, he was already extremely weak and his injuries were unbelievably serious. An 8th Tribulation sub-immortal armament armor was pierced through. Someone's expression was extremely solemn. This time, although a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal was not completely destroyed, it was still shocking. This was because this 9th Tribulation sub-immortal's full defense was useless. Even an 8th Tribulation sub-immortal armament armor was pierced through. It was terrifying. With another sword strike, this person would definitely die. Lu Ming, Lu Song, and the others, as well as the origin of the Azure Divine Realm and the other sub-immortals, were all excited. Tang Feng was so powerful. Could he block the people from the outer verse and protect a fragment of the heart of the universe? Gather together. Don't let him defeat us one by one. Someone shouted. The remaining ninth tribulation sub-immortals gathered together and merged their auras, preparing to join forces to fight Tang Feng. However, one person did not move. This was a figure about 3 meters tall. He had a human form and was shrouded in a mysterious light. His appearance could not be seen clearly. He had attacked together with the other ninth tribulation sub-immortals, but he did not attack or move. He just stood there quietly. It seemed that he had no intention of attacking, nor did he speak. Interesting, really interesting. I didn't expect that there would be such an expert in this broken great universe. I didn't come here in vain. At this moment the figure spoke. His eyes were like 2 stars, shining brightly as he stared at Tang Feng. Then he walked toward Tang Feng step by step. Boom. A terrifying aura erupted from this person. It was far more terrifying than the other ninth tribulation sub-immortals. The light on his body also retracted, revealing his true appearance. This was an excessively handsome young man. He was 3 meters tall and covered in black armor. There was a strange mark between his eyebrows that looked like a flower petal. Judging from his aura, there was no doubt that this person came from the netherworld. Schwehigen, he is Schwehigen. After seeing this person's appearance, someone exclaimed, "It's really Schwehigen." Yes, it's him. It's really Schwehigen. He actually dared to come to the primitive universe. Even the ninth tribulation sub-immortals from the sacred light great cosmos, Jade Clear Great Cosmos, and Bones Great Cosmos exclaimed. There was no other reason. Schwehigen was too famous and too powerful. This person came from the Permitha Great Cosmos in the Yin world. The Permitha Great Cosmos was ranked 3rd among the tens of thousands of great cosmoses in the Yin world. Its overall strength was much stronger than the Bones Great Cosmos and Sacred Light Great Cosmos. Since Schwehigen dared to use the name Permitha, one could imagine how extraordinary he was. He was known as the #1 sub-immortal in the Permitha Great Cosmos. Not only that, but he could also be ranked in the top 20 sub-immortals in the entire universe C. He was the top 20 strongest beings under the immortal Tao. Chapter 5197. Schwehigen was known as one of the top 20 most powerful beings under the immortal path. That was the entire cosmic sea, including the Yang realm and the Yin realm. That was terrifying. The Yang realm had the Azure Sky universe, while the Yin realm had the Yellow Sky universe. They were at the peak of the Yang realm and the Yin realm, respectively. The Azure Sky race and the Yellow Sky race were extremely ancient. No one knew how long they had existed. They were extremely talented, and no other race in the cosmic sea could compare with them. According to ancient legends, the two races were beings born in the Yin-Yang realm and were closely related to the cosmic sea. In the past, the strongest group of people had been occupied by the Azure Sky race and the Yellow Sky race. Very few people in the other great universes could compete with the two celestial races. Most of the strongest people under the immortal path were occupied by the two celestial races. Schwehigen could be ranked in the top 20, which showed how strong he was. He would definitely become a king of the immortal path in the future. The 9 tribulation sub-immortals of the outer verse were delighted. With Schwehigen attacking, Tang Feng had nothing to worry about. Leave him to me. You guys go and deal with the others. Schwehigen stared at Tang Feng with a burning flame in his eyes as if he was staring at his prey. Kill? Tang Feng was very domineering. He didn't want to waste time talking and directly attacked Schwehigen. Red Spider Lily, Immortal Slaying Blade. Schwehigen shouted and waved his hand. A terrifying blade light burst out. The sword light and the blade light seemed to break the great universe and collided in the chaos. Suddenly, endless sword chi and blade light swept in all directions. Retreat. The other 9 tribulation sub-immortals were shocked and didn't dare to get too close. Even with their strength, they were afraid of being swept in. Boom. Boom. The speed of Tang Feng and Schwehigen's exchange was too fast. They had exchanged dozens of moves in an instant. At this moment, everyone's expression changed. Especially the experts of the outer verse who were shocked. Tang Feng could really fight with Schwehigen. It was terrifying, shocking, and unbelievable. Was this still a broken great universe? The human race is really terrifying. 3 human kings were born in the past, and they rose quickly and almost rushed into the top 10 of the Yang realm. This race can't be left alive. They must be wiped out. That's right. Today we must kill them. Work together and kill the others first before killing that fellow. We have to eliminate him. Otherwise, he might become another sovereign personage in the future. The powerhouses of the Outerverse quickly reached an agreement, and then they all attacked with all their might. The three primogenitors of the Azure Godly Realm and the two incomplete immortals of the Fiend race had been fighting for a long time. They were all injured, their bodies covered in wounds, blood flowing continuously. As for the Junior Human King, he could barely hold his own against the 6-9 Tribulation sub-immortals. His physical body was unparalleled, but his soul was not that strong. When the Junior Human King was at his peak, his soul was naturally incomparably powerful. However, in the past few years his realm had already dropped. Moreover, his soul had been severely damaged during the battle with Teak, and it was still far from recovering. Out of the 6 experts who were attacking him, 2 of them were experts in soul attacks. This was a weakness for the Junior Human King. Apart from them, there were 5 other sub-immortals who had undergone 9 tribulations. Originally there were 7 of them. After Tang Feng attacked, 1 died and 1 was injured. The injured one would not be able to make a move for the time being. Only 5 of them could make a move. These 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals had their eyes on Fei Huang and were closing in on her. Kill? The 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals shouted and charged toward Fei Huang together. Fei Huang was fearless. Boundless demonic chi erupted as she fought against the 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals. What was shocking was that Fei Huang was able to temporarily resist the 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals with her 8th Tribulation sub-immortal Cultivation. The people of the Azure Godly Realm were overjoyed. Could it be that they could stop the experts of the Outerverse today? However, their joy immediately turned into anger. This was because the situation on the battlefield had changed again. In the void, a few more figures appeared, all of them emitting an astonishing aura. 9th Tribulation sub-immortals, another 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. 1, 2, there were a total of 12. No, many people shouted, their faces full of despair. The experts of the Outerverse were simply endless. Previously, more than 29th Tribulation sub-immortals had appeared. Now another 12 had appeared. How could they fight? At this time, even the 3 primogenitors of the Azure Godly Realm and the 2 demon immortals of the Fiend race were in despair. More than 39th Tribulation sub-immortals, this was an extremely terrifying number. In some weak great cosmoses, there were no living beings of the immortal Tao overseeing them. A 9th Tribulation sub-immortal was the ruler of a great cosmos and could be called the king of the great cosmos. Now they were like cabbages on the side of the road, appearing one after another. It could only be said that the treasures left behind by the primitive universe were too attractive. Even 9th Tribulation sub-immortals could not sit still. These 9th Tribulation sub-immortals could not be from the same great cosmos. It was very difficult to mobilize so many 9th Tribulation sub-immortals in the same great cosmos. These 9th Tribulation sub-immortals came from different great cosmoses, both the Yang world and the Yin world. At this time they all had the same idea, which was to get rid of the experts of the primitive universe. Some people had arrived earlier and had been hiding in the dark and did not make a move. Some people had just arrived. However, they could not help but want to make a move now. Kill? Among the 12 new 9th Tribulation sub-immortals, 2 of them shouted and charged toward the Junior Human King. This way, 8 9th Tribulation sub-immortals surrounded the Junior Human King. Moreover, these 2 9th Tribulation sub-immortals were also proficient in soul attacks. As a result, the Junior Human King was even more passive. His soul was continuously attacked, and one could see wisps of light rain dissipating from his body. This was a symptom of part of his soul being scattered. If not for the Junior Human King's soul being tempered and resilient, he would have been able to withstand it. If it were anyone else, their soul would have dissipated long ago. Bam! Bam! Another 2 people stepped out. They charged toward the Azure Divine Realm's ancestor Wu Nian and the demon race's Phoenix. Ancestor Wu Nian and the Phoenix were originally fighting 3 9th Tribulation sub-immortals alone. They were very passive and were at a disadvantage. Now that a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal joined in, their situation immediately became very bad. The Phoenix let out a long cry. One of its wings was pierced by a black and gold spear, and blood, flesh and feathers flew everywhere. The Azure Divine Realm's ancestor Wu Nian was also not a match. He was injured by a battle sword and coughed up large mouthfuls of blood. The new 9th Tribulation sub-immortal made a move, completely changing the situation of the battle. There were still 8 9th Tribulation sub-immortals who had not made a move. They scanned the battlefield, glancing at the battle between the Phoenix and the 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals, the battle between the 2 patriarchs of the Azure Divine Realm, and the battle between the Azure Bull. They were all fighting one against many. If more experts joined in, the situation would be one-sided. You alone can't do it. Come with a few more. A loud shout came from the depths of the void far away. Then the sound of a sword rang out. A few terrifying sword lights burst out and slashed toward the remaining 8 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals. It was the sword progenitor. Chapter 5198. The taboo sword ancestor, Tang Feng, slashed out a terrifying sword light while fighting Xue Higan. He wanted to drag the remaining 8 sub-immortals into the battle by himself. He knew very well that the others would definitely die if they couldn't withstand the attacks of the 8 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals. I'm your opponent. Xue Higan roared. Tang Feng had underestimated him. He wanted to drag others into the battle while fighting with him. However, after the battle he felt more and more pressure. He felt that the other party's sword was endless and gradually he was at a disadvantage. It was unbelievable. Who was he? He was the top expert under the immortal path in the Nirvana universe, and he was ranked in the top 10 among the sub-immortals in the entire world. Apart from those freaks from the Yellow Sky race, he was almost invincible under the immortal path. But now, there was someone in this ruined universe who could suppress him. He roared and tried his best to turn the situation around, but it was useless. The 8 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals attacked together and blocked Tang Feng's sword light. What an arrogant person. We'll kill you first. A 9th Tribulation sub-immortal snorted. Yes, we can get rid of this person first. Another person nodded. Those who could reach the 9th Tribulation sub-immortal level were not ordinary people. They were all peerless geniuses when they were young and they were all arrogant. Now Lu Ming was attacking them while fighting Xue Higan, which made them very unhappy. Some of them changed their target and planned to join forces with Xue Higan to get rid of Tang Feng. Swish, swish. At the same time, 5 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals rushed into the battle between Tang Feng and Xue Higan and attacked Tang Feng. Xue Higan's face was gloomy, but he didn't refuse their help. He knew very well that he couldn't do anything to Tang Feng by himself, so he had to join forces with others. With the addition of 5 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals, the pressure on Tang Feng increased greatly. He could not help but slow down his attacks. There were still 3 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals who didn't move. Bam! One of them made a move, joining the battle group that was besieging Flying Phoenix. In this way, there were as many as 6 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals surrounding Fei Huang. No matter how powerful Fei Huang was, she was no match for them. After all, she was only an 8th Tribulation sub-immortal. She had undergone 1 tribulation less than the others. It was already heaven-defying for her to be able to take on 5 opponents at once. That was an extreme display of power. In a short period of time, one's battle prowess had been pushed to the extreme. As time passed, Flying Phoenix would definitely lose. At this moment, another 9th Tribulation sub-immortal joined the battle, and the balance was instantly broken. 2 sword lights slashed towards Fei Huang's face and the back of her head. Above his head, a pagoda came crashing down. Behind him, a long spear pierced towards him. A saber and a spear were aimed at Fei Huang's dantian. Fei Huang lightly shouted. Demonic chi soared into the sky, and a rain of flowers filled the sky. They turned into boundless sword light and slashed in all directions. At the same time, she waved her hands continuously, and countless palm imprints blasted out, shaking the universe and the sky. The power was so strong that even a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal would be shocked. If it was a one-on-one battle, she could instantly injure a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal. But after all, there were 6 of them. 5 of them were blocked, but a saber light broke through Fei Huang's defense and almost cut her in half. Fei Huang was sent flying. Her face was a little pale and a terrifying wound had appeared on her chest. On the wound, there were countless tiny saber lights that were invisible to the naked eye, constantly destroying Fei Huang's body. Fei Huang circulated her forbidden origin power to get rid of these saber lights and quickly healed her injured body. She's been hit by my extinction saber. It won't be so easy to recover. Let's completely destroy her in one go. The 9th Tribulation sub-immortal holding the saber shouted. His saber light pierced the sky and launched a crazy attack. The other 5 people did the same. Their terrifying attacks almost drowned Fei Huang. Fei Huang could only dodge with all her might. For a time it was difficult for her to fight back. The other 2 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals who had not attacked also attacked. One of them joined the battle and attacked the Green Bull. The other joined the battle and attacked the white-haired old woman of the Azure Divine Realm. The 2 of them were already no match for her. At this moment, it was completely one-sided. Mo. The green bull roared. One of its legs was cut off and blood stained the battlefield. The white-haired old woman's hair was disheveled. Her chest had been punched through. Die. The experts besieging them attacked crazily. This time the green bull's head was cut off. Someone punched down and blasted the green bull's head. No. The phoenix of the devil race roared, wanting to help. However, she was already surrounded by 4 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals and was in danger. At this moment she was distracted and almost lost her head. The others were also powerless to help. It was too tragic. Although the people in the primitive universe had great battle prowess, there were too few of them. Facing too many experts, each of them was besieged by many experts. It was difficult for them to protect themselves, let alone rescue others. Damn it, Lu Song, Lu Ming and the others clenched their fists tightly. Their bodies trembled and their eyes were red. They hated that their cultivation was too low and they hated that they could not participate in the battle. I want to participate in the battle. I want to participate in the battle. Human sovereign broken sword, awaken and give me power. Lu Ming shouted and took out the human sovereign broken sword, hoping that it would awaken. Unfortunately, no matter how much power he injected, the human sovereign broken sword did not respond at all. At this moment, a bull's roar resounded in the universe. Although the green bull's head had been cut off, as long as his soul was not destroyed, he would not die. His head was reborn and his battle blood boiled. He suddenly rushed out and knocked away a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal. The chest of the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal collapsed and even his armor was shattered. His bones and flesh flew everywhere. He was severely injured. However, the attacks of the other 2 all landed on the green bull and tore his body into pieces. However, the green bull was still not dead and his body was quickly regenerating. The primitive universe will rise. Kill. I will kill all of you, the green bull roared and ignored the attacks of the others. He only stared at the injured person. Swish. The green bull turned into a beam of green light and rushed toward the injured Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal. The green light that filled the sky drowned that person. Come and save me. The terrified voice of the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal came from the green light. How dare you, kill? The other 2 attacked the green bull with their ultimate attacks. That area had been completely destroyed. Boom. Then there was an earth-shattering explosion, followed by a mournful scream. The scream came from the injured Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal. That Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal was completely killed. However, the green bull also paid the price with his life. His soul had been torn apart and obliterated. Boom. The green light suddenly surged and the 2 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals quickly retreated and withdrew from the green light. One of them was in tatters and had obviously been severely injured. If he's finally dead. So what if he's an immortal? He's still going to die. A Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal snorted. The green light that the green ox had transformed into quickly dissipated. In the end, only an illusory figure was left floating in the air. Green bull. The phoenix roared. Chapter 5199. The phoenix roared, her voice full of anger and sorrow. She knew that Green Ox had fallen. This was just a phantom, a remnant mark of Green Ox. Goodbye, old friend. The phantom of Green Ox glanced at the phoenix, then quickly dimmed and was about to disappear completely. I believe that the universe will rise again and return to its original prosperity. Unfortunately, I won't be able to see it. Successors, I'll leave the primitive universe to you. The blue ox's final voice reverberated through the universe. His phantom completely dissipated, vanishing from the world. At this moment, the universe shook and the heavenly river dimmed, as if it was mourning the fall of an immortal. Ah! The phoenix roared and launched a crazy counterattack. Her wings were like heavenly blades, sending a Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal flying and vomiting blood. But she was only one person after all. She was attacked by others and was injured. The sky was filled with phoenix feathers. Everyone else in the Your-Wilds universe felt their blood boil as well, and the Your-Wilds demon folk roared with all their might. Human King's broken sword, wake up. Aren't you the sword of the Human King? Now that the universe is facing a critical moment, why don't you wake up and take me to fight? Lu Ming growled. Bus. This time the Human King's broken sword reacted. Sword come. Sword ancestor Tang Feng's long hair fluttered like a fiend god. With a roar, all the swords in the universe trembled as if they were on a pilgrimage. At this moment, as long as it was in the universe, no matter where it was, as long as it was a sword, it would tremble slightly. What's going on? Why is my battle sword acting strangely? Many Outerverse powerhouses in various parts of the universe were shocked, and all of them were trying to control their swords. Even the subimmortals were like that. The broken sword in Lu Ming's hand trembled even more violently, then it flew out of his hand, broke the void, and instantly appeared in Sword Ancestor Tang Feng's hand. After the broken sword appeared in Tang Feng's hand, it erupted with a shocking aura and a terrifying sword light slashed out. Shui Bai En and the others who were besieging him quickly retreated to avoid the sword light. A broken immortal weapon. Do you want the universe to be completely destroyed? Shui Bai En's face was gloomy. At the same time, a sword appeared in his hand. It was also a broken immortal weapon. A terrifying aura emerged from the saber. Boom. The aura of the human king's broken sword collided with the aura of the battle saber. The universe rumbled. Everyone's expression changed. Even if it was a broken immortal weapon, if it was pushed to the limit, its power would still be terrifying. The broken great desolate universe might not be able to withstand it. Therefore, although a small number of people had brought broken immortal weapons along, such as Jianghu of the Nether River Great Cosmos, they hadn't used them except to break the seal of the Azure Divine Realm because they were afraid of this. Umph. The sword ancestor snorted and swept out his sword, forcing the others to retreat. Then he turned into a sword light and rushed out of the encirclement. After he broke out of the encirclement, he rushed towards the Ashen Cyan Immortal Realm and landed on the highest mountain in the Ashen Cyan Immortal Realm. In an instant, Tang Feng's aura seemed to have fused together with the Azure Divine Realm. His aura suddenly grew stronger. Following that, a small pagoda appeared in Tang Feng's hand. It was the size of a thumb, as if it was cast from fine jade. Bang! Tang Feng clenched his fingers and the small pagoda was crushed. The next moment, a continent appeared out of thin air and rapidly grew in size. In the end, it merged with the Azure Divine Realm. There was a gap on this continent that was exactly the same as the gap on the edge of the Azure Divine Realm. It was perfectly glued together. A fragment of the heart of the universe. It's a fragment of the heart of the universe. He also has one in his hand, Lin Feng said. Many people shouted. The others were shocked. Tang Feng also had a fragment of the heart of the universe. At this moment he took out 2 fragments of the heart of the universe and merged them together. All the hearts of the universe have appeared. Lu Ming whispered. The people of the Outerverse had obtained 2 fragments. Now Tang Feng took out one and the other was the Azure Divine Realm. The last fragment should be the Great Desolate Ring, which was in Lu Ming's hands. A total of 5 fragments were present. Boom. The 2 fragments of the heart of the universe merged, and the ancient aura it emitted became even stronger. Tang Feng's aura merged with the fragment of the heart of the universe and became even stronger. It was like a billowing smoke signal. He wants to knock on the immortal pass and break through to the immortal realm. A 9th tribulation sub-immortal of the Outerverse exclaimed. This guy is crazy to knock on the immortal pass in the middle of a battle. There are only 2 fragments of the heart of the universe. It's not complete at all. The laws and order are chaotic. It's impossible for him to break through successfully. A 9th tribulation sub-immortal spoke one after another. How could it be so easy to knock on the immortal pass and become an immortal? Knocking on the immortal pass could be said to be more dangerous than the 9th level immortal tribulation. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many 9th level sub-immortals who were stuck at this step. In fact, in history, countless 9th level sub-immortals had fallen at this step and turned into ashes. Moreover, that was when the environment was perfect and they were fully prepared. Now, in an environment like the primitive universe, how could one knock on the immortal pass? It was impossible. Don't be careless. Stop him with all your strength. Shui Bian said. He didn't know why, but he instinctively felt danger from Tang Feng. He himself was a peerless genius among peerless geniuses. He knew that people at this level couldn't be measured by common sense. They could often turn the impossible into the possible and create miracles. Although the probability was very small, he still wanted to destroy it in the cradle. Shui Bian activated the broken immortal weapon and charged toward Tang Feng. Tang Feng waved the human king's broken sword, and the sword and saber clashed. The world rumbled and the universe shook. Fortunately, Tang Feng was standing on the fragment of the heart of the universe. At this moment, the 2 fragments of the heart of the universe had merged. Most of the power was absorbed by the heart of the universe, so it didn't cause the universe to shake. Suddenly, a figure appeared on the saber in Shui Bian's hand. It was indomitable and had a strong and incomparably domineering aura. It was the figure of the previous owner of the saber. This voice stretched out a big hand and grabbed toward Tang Feng. However, at this moment, a figure also appeared on the human king's broken sword. Father. The junior human king roared. This figure was exactly the same as the human king's physical body. It was the human king Shen Yuan. However, this wasn't the will left behind by the human king Shen Yuan. It was just the power of the human king's sword that had awakened. Because it often accompanied the human king by Shen Yuan's side, its form was the same as the human king's. The two figures collided in the air. The two broken immortal weapons were in a deadlock, resisting each other. Kill. Stop him from breaking through. Shuebian charged toward Tang Feng. The other 5 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals also charged toward Tang Feng to stop him from breaking through. Get lost. Tang Feng shouted coldly. He held his sword and slashed out a shocking sword chi, sweeping away Shuebian and the other 5 experts. Shuebian was very strong, not much weaker than Tang Feng. He broke through the layers of sword chi and charged toward Tang Feng. The 6 experts besieged Tang Feng, blocking his rising aura. Join us. The 2 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals who had besieged the Green Bull previously also charged toward Tang Feng. It became 8 experts besieging Tang Feng. Chapter 5200. 8 great experts were besieging Tang Feng. With Xue Higan around, Tang Feng's breakthrough was blocked. It was too far-fetched to fight 8 experts and Xue Higan alone. It would be difficult for him to even protect himself, let alone break through. After a few moves, Tang Feng was injured by Xue Higan, and his body was covered in blood. In fact, Tang Feng's situation was not the worst. The others were in a worse situation. Everyone was injured and the situation was quite bad. Stop them. You must stop them and let Tang Feng break through. Only by breaking through and becoming an immortal will the primitive universe have hope. Fei Huang shouted and fought with all her strength, wanting to kill Tang Feng. She was almost a Dao transformation. Her body was covered in blood and her origin energy was boiling. She repelled the attacks of 2 Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals in succession. In the end, she paid a certain price and finally rushed out of the encirclement. She approached Tang Feng and blocked the two for him. On the other side, the junior human king roared and ignored his defense. He used his human king body to block the attacks of the other party. He also rushed out of the encirclement and approached Tang Feng, wanting to stop the others for Tang Feng. The 3 primogenitors of the Azure Divine Realm and the Phoenix were unable to break out of the encirclement. They were in a precarious situation and could follow in the footsteps of the Azure Ox at any time. Unfortunately, they were too few in number. Fei Huang and the junior human king approached Tang Feng, and the dozen Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals who were besieging them also rushed over. They were still in a very passive situation. I want to kill the enemy. Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others shouted. They could not wait to join the battle. Lu Ming's blood was boiling. His battle blood was burning. At this moment, the blood crystal in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness suddenly emitted a bright light. Then it exploded with a bang and turned into a whistling energy that merged into Lu Ming's body. This energy was too strong. A layer of blood-red light floated on the surface of Lu Ming's body. At the same time, a voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. For the primitive universe, for the human race, I will die on the battlefield. Now, I will lend my remaining power and soul power to you. Kill. As the voice fell, Lu Ming felt that his soul was wrapped by a layer of powerful soul power. The Lord of the Taishang Immortal Dynasty. Lu Ming understood that this was the Lord of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty. In the Grand Supreme Immortal Capital, the Emperor of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty refined a great enemy and left behind a blood crystal for himself. Within the blood crystal, there was even a strand of the remnant soul of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty's Emperor. Then he spat out a mouthful of blood and his face paled. One could see that his chest had caved in. The fist force had almost penetrated it. The Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal scanned Lu Ming with his spiritual sense and discovered that Lu Ming was only at the origin realm, but there was a terrifying power on him. Be careful. The power of an expert is attached to him, borrowing his strength to attack. Someone roared. These people were all Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals, so they naturally saw through Lu Ming's strength with a single glance. However, Lu Ming didn't stop there. He continued to attack the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal from the Holy Light Cosmos. Lu Ming had already injured the Ninth Tribulation sub-immortal with a single punch. Now was a good opportunity. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming swung his fists and punched continuously. In an instant he had sent out over 100 punches. At this moment he felt that he had endless power that he needed to vent. Therefore he didn't hold back at all. Every punch contained his full strength. Over 100 punches directly drowned the ninth tribulation subimmortal. Boom. In the end, the ninth tribulation subimmortal exploded in the sky. However, he didn't die. A ray of light wrapped around his broken body and fled into the distance before condensing again. He didn't die even after that. Lu Ming's face sank. He only understood how terrifying a ninth tribulation subimmortal was after fighting for real. Their vitality was too strong, as if they had an undying body. Even when their bodies exploded and their souls were about to be annihilated, they still didn't die. It was no wonder that since the start of the battle, only Azure Ox managed to pull one ninth tribulation subimmortal away with its life, and Sword Ancestor Tang Feng managed to kill one. Apart from that, no other ninth tribulation subimmortal had died. Such an existence had undergone the ninth tribulation subimmortal tribulation and had tempered themselves to become extremely powerful. If even the ninth tribulation subimmortal tribulation couldn't kill him, just how strong was his vitality? Although the ninth tribulation subimmortal didn't die, he was still heavily injured. His aura was weak and he would not be able to participate in the battle for a while. The ninth tribulation subimmortal also knew his own situation. He frantically retreated, wanting to leave the battlefield. Lu Ming didn't give chase. If he focused on chasing this person, he would most likely be able to kill him in the end, but that would waste a lot of time. The others were in a very bad situation. They could follow in Azure Ox's footsteps at any time. He had to help the others first. Chapter 5201. Whoosh. These thoughts flashed in Lu Ming's mind and he made a decision in an instant. His figure did not stop at all. With a turn, he charged toward another battlefield. The battlefield of the other two primogenitors in the Azure Divine Realm. The two progenitors had already regrouped, but the experts who had besieged them had also gathered. They were in a precarious situation. They were heavily injured, and it wouldn't be long before they followed in Azure Ox's footsteps. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming punched crazily as soon as he arrived. The violent fist force exploded the void and charged towards a ninth tribulation subimmortal. This ninth tribulation subimmortal also coughed up blood and retreated with a pale face. In the distance, Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others were dumbfounded. They couldn't understand how Lu Ming, who was originally with them, could suddenly erupt with such powerful strength and injure two ninth tribulation subimmortals consecutively. But following that, they were excited. Great! Seeing Lu Ming injure the second ninth tribulation subimmortal, Lu Song and the others shouted excitedly. They couldn't wait to charge into the battlefield like Lu Ming. Don't be defeated by him one by one. Join forces to deal with him. A ninth tribulation subimmortal from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos shouted and charged towards Lu Ming. To be precise, it was two ninth tribulation subimmortals. There were originally three ninth tribulation subimmortals from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos who had joined forces to kill the Green Ox. One of them was killed by the Green Ox, and the other was severely injured. The remaining one, who had originally participated in the besieging of Tang Feng, was now charging towards Lu Ming with another expert. Two beams of terrifying sword gleams slashed toward Lu Ming as if they were splitting the sky and the earth. Lu Ming punched and shattered the two sword lights. He faced the two experts from the Jade Clear Great Cosmos. But from another direction, another attack was launched towards Lu Ming. It was an expert who was besieging the Phoenix of the demon race. This person abandoned the Phoenix and charged towards Lu Ming. The three experts pounced towards Lu Ming like lightning. Lu Ming stopped and brandished his fists to bombard them. His fist energy weaved unhindered as he fought against the three experts. In a battle of this level, Lu Ming's Genesis techniques were naturally useless, and he had to rely on brute force. Lu Ming relied on brute force and crazily swung his fists to fight against the three experts. Unexpectedly, he still had the upper hand. However, this was the best he could do. The three masters cooperated with each other to disperse Lu Ming's strength. Lu Ming wanted to defeat them, but he couldn't do it in a short time. However, with Lu Ming participating in the battle, the pressure on the others lessened slightly. It was about to break through the void and escape. The fragment of the heart of the universe wants to escape. Stop it. Stop it quickly. Danning shouted. There was no need for him to shout. The subimmortal experts of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos had already made their moves. Layers of power struck out, trying to imprison the fragment of the heart of the universe. However, the fragment of the heart of the universe shook and broke free from these forces. It broke through the void and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Ah, my fragment of the heart of the universe, my fragment of the heart of the universe, get it back for me? Danning let out a hysterical roar. His mentality had completely collapsed. The fragment of the heart of the universe was the foundation of his Tao. With the help of the latest fragment of the universe, not only would his talent and potential increase greatly, but he would also be able to quickly pass the 9-stage immortal tribulation and achieve the immortal Tao. He might even be able to use this to become the king of the immortal Tao. The king of the immortal Tao was also known as the immortal king. The king of the immortals. Even in the entire universe C, the immortal king was the top expert and the overlord of a region. Many great cosmoses didn't even have immortals, let alone immortal kings. In the Jade Clear Great Cosmos, the immortal king was the top figure and there weren't many of them. Other than his big brother, Dan Xiong, who would dare to say that they could definitely step into this realm. With his talent, he might not even have a 100% chance of becoming an immortal, let alone an immortal king. There was absolutely no hope. However, there was hope with the fragment of the heart of the universe of the primitive universe. But now this hope was gone. It had escaped from his hands. How could he not go crazy? Chase. The sub-immortals of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos broke through the void and chased after it. However, there was no trace of the fragment of the heart of the universe. The same situation was happening on the other side of the universe. In the Een-world skeletal Great Cosmos, there was also a prodigy who had obtained a fragment of the heart of the universe. However, at this moment, this fragment of the heart of the universe had also escaped and broke through the void. The Azure Divine Realm. Boom. Boom. The void exploded. 2 continents suddenly appeared and merged with the continent under Tang Feng's feet. These 2 continents that suddenly appeared were naturally the 2 fragments of the heart of the universe that Dan Ing and the others had obtained. It's the fragment of the heart of the universe. Damn it. The experts of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos and Skeletal Great Cosmos shouted angrily. Chapter 5202. The experts of the Jade Clear Great Cosmos and the Bone Great Cosmos had ugly expressions. The fragment of the heart of the universe that should have belonged to them had actually appeared here. Clearly it had been lured here. Tang Feng's aura had merged with the 2 fragments of the heart of the universe. He wanted to break through to the immortal realm, so he had triggered the heart of the universe and attracted the other 2 fragments. The 4 fragments of the heart of the universe merged with Tang Feng's aura, causing his aura to surge again. Stop him. Shuihagan shouted and attacked crazily. Saber light slashed at Tang Feng to prevent him from breaking through. There are only 4 fragments of the heart of the universe. The laws of order are incomplete. He can't break through, someone said. They weren't afraid that Tang Feng could break through. It wasn't that easy to break through the immortal realm and become an immortal. Even in a complete environment, there was a slim chance of survival. The fusion of the 4 fragments of the heart of the universe was also incomplete. It was impossible to break through successfully. Sure enough, Tang Feng's aura seemed to be obstructed when it rose to a certain height. The complete heart of the universe and the Chaos Ring. Qiuqiu, take out the Chaos Ring. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu's stomach formed a space of its own that isolated the outside world. The Chaos Ring didn't fly out by itself. Good. The Chaos Ring acted strangely just now, but I suppressed it. I see. Qiuqiu shouted and opened its mouth. The Chaos Ring flew out from inside. As soon as it flew out, it quickly flew towards Tang Feng. Halfway through, the Chaos Ring cracked and the continent inside emerged, merging with the heart of the universe under Tang Feng's feet. The 5 fragments of the heart of the universe merged and the complete heart of the universe reappeared. It is indeed the heart of the universe. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He had long suspected that the Chaos Ring was a heart of the universe. In order to avoid being deduced by the Almighty of the Outerverse, he had already cleared out the treasures in the heart of the universe and put them in his storage ring or Taishang Immortal City. He had once taken away a piece of the Stellar Sky continent and released it long ago. The Great Desolate Ring was already empty. The 5 fragments of the universe merged and the complete heart of the universe reappeared. Boundless laws of order permeated the entire desolate universe. These laws of order couldn't be seen, but they were like invisible threads. With the heart of the universe as the core, they spread across the entire universe and connected with all the continent fragments in the universe. At this moment, countless fragments of continents in the desolate universe were glowing and vibrating before flying in the direction of the universe core. At this moment, all the living beings in the primitive universe felt a little different. They felt like they were about to merge with the heaven and earth. They felt like they could clearly capture the rules and order of the universe. Their minds also became much clearer. Many things that they couldn't comprehend in the past suddenly became enlightened. The three primogenitors of the Tsangqing divine realm, the monster race overlords, and all the origins and subimmortals of the Tsangqing divine realm were overjoyed. How many years had it been? How many years had it been? The complete cosmic core had finally reappeared. This time, as long as they could get through this hurdle and protect the heart of the universe, the primitive universe would have hope of rising again. He would risk his life to protect the heart of the universe. Everyone in the primitive universe roared in their hearts, and then they fought back crazily. Boom. When the complete heart of the universe reappeared, Tang Feng's aura, which had been obstructed, rose again. Open for me. Tang Feng roared. An ancient door seemed to have appeared in his body. The door was tightly shut. At this moment, a terrifying sword light rushed out of Tang Feng's body and bombarded the ancient door. Boom. The door shook violently, but it was still tightly shut. Tang Feng seemed to have suffered some backlash. He staggered and spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his eyes were still bright. He roared again, and an even more shocking sword light rushed out and slashed the door again, knocking on the Immortal Pass. This door was the Immortal Pass. As long as one knocked on the Immortal Pass and broke through this door, they could leap up and achieve transcendence. They could prove their Tao and become an immortal, becoming another kind of life form. However, knocking on the Immortal Pass was very dangerous. Every strike would cause a backlash from the Immortal Pass and one would die. Boom. Tang Feng's second strike landed on the door, and the door shook even more violently. The door looked like it was made of stone. At this moment, it seemed like stone chips and gravel were flying everywhere. The expressions of all the ninth tribulation subimmortals in the outerverse changed drastically. This was a sign of breaking through the Immortal Pass. How was this possible? The 5 universe core fragments had just fused, and the laws of order were not perfect yet. This required a process and a certain amount of time before the primitive universe could transform into a complete great universe, which was suitable for breaking through and becoming an immortal. But now it had just been fused. In theory, it was still impossible for him to become an immortal. Moreover, he was still fighting with them. How could he have the strength to knock on the Immortal Pass? However, Tang Feng's aura was too strong. He might really succeed. Stop him. Once he succeeds, we will all die. He is now knocking on the Immortal Pass. Most of his power is focused on the Immortal Pass. He can't stop us. Take the opportunity to kill him. Dozens of ninth tribulation subimmortals roared and attacked crazily. Tang Feng was hit by a palm print. His body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The main reason was that there were too many experts. More than half of the ninth tribulation subimmortals were besieging Tang Feng. Get lost. The junior human king roared. His body became as huge as a star. His fists kept bombarding. He blocked 8 ninth tribulation subimmortals alone. His fists were harder than ninth tribulation subimmortal weapons. However, these subimmortals were skilled in soul attacks. The junior human king's body trembled. His soul felt like it was being torn apart. Fei Huang also attacked with all her might. She blocked 5 or 6 ninth tribulation subimmortals. However, this was already the limit. There were still 5 or 6 ninth tribulation subimmortals attacking Tang Feng, including Shuehigan. The one who posed the greatest threat to Tang Feng was Shuehigan. Tang Feng's body glowed. Sword chi seeped out of every pore on his body, forming shields of sword chi around him. They had astonishing defensive power, but they were broken by Shuehigan every time. Since the experts from the Nether River Great Cosmos and the Holy Light Great Cosmos arrived, there were now 39 ninth tribulation subimmortals from the outerverse. Among them, one was killed by Azure Ox and the other was killed by Tang Feng. 37 of them were still alive. Among these 37, one was severely injured by Tang Feng's sword. 2 were injured by the junior human king and 2 were injured by Lu Ming. These 5 people were hiding in the distance to heal their injuries. There were still 32 ninth tribulation subimmortals participating in the battle. 3 were besieging the thoughtless progenitor, 3 were besieging the demon phoenix, 5 were besieging the 2 incomplete immortals from the Azure Godly Realm, and 3 were besieging Lu Ming. There were still 18 ninth tribulation subimmortals stopping Tang Feng. Chapter 5203. It was impossible to stop 18 ninth tribulation subimmortals with just Fei Huang and the little human king. Boom, boom. Tang Feng was hit continuously. He staggered and spat out blood, unable to use the third sword to knock the immortal gate. Get lost! Tang Feng shouted and slashed at Shuehigan with all his strength. Shuehigan blocked the attack with his saber and quickly retreated, but the next moment he attacked again. Shuehigan's strength was not much weaker than Tang Feng's. With Tang Feng's strength he could not hurt him at all. I have to stop Shuehigan to let the sword ancestor break through, but I'm afraid I can't stop Shuehigan with my strength. What should I do? Lu Ming thought quickly as he fought the three experts. There was only one person who could stop Shuehigan, and that was the Little Human King. Shuehigan was not good at soul attacks, and the Little Human King could use his strong body to stop Shuehigan. But without the Little Human King, who could stop the 8-9 Tribulation sub-immortals? I don't care. I'll go all out. Lu Ming roared in his heart. He ignored his defense and attacked one of them with all his strength. Boom. The man was sent flying, but Lu Ming was hit as well. The sanguine glow on his body dimmed. There was even a terrifying force that struck the sanguine glow in Lu Ming. Fortunately, most of the power had been weakened by the sanguine light. The power that landed on Lu Ming's body was less than 1%. Even so, Lu Ming was still injured and he vomited blood. The power of a 9 Tribulation sub-immortal was too terrifying. If not for the bloody light, Lu Ming would have been turned into ashes. In this way, Lu Ming rushed out of the encirclement of the three and charged toward the Little Human King. Before he arrived, he punched continuously with both fists. Hundreds of punches were about to drown the 8 experts. Senior, go and stop Shuehigan. Leave these people to me. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the Little Human King. Leave them to you? The Little Human King hesitated. He could see that Lu Ming was only relying on external forces, and he definitely could not stop so many 9 Tribulation sub-immortals. But did he have a choice now? He was the only one who could stop Shuehigan. Only by blocking Shuebai, and would Tang Feng have a chance to open the immortal gate and become an immortal. Scram! The Little Human King shouted loudly. He didn't care about defense and charged forward with his physical body. Clang! He suddenly threw a punch at a battle sword. The battle sword was a 9th Tribulation quasi-immortal armament, and it was covered in cracks. The sword's master rapidly retreated. The other punch also sent a 9th Tribulation sub-immortal retreating. Due to Lu Ming's interference, these 8 9th Tribulation sub-immortals were distracted and allowed the Junior Human King to break out of the encirclement with his powerful physical body. The Junior Human King charged at Shuehigan. Brat, your opponent is me. Junior Human Monarch's iron fist was like a huge meteorite as it smashed toward Shuehigan. Shuebai, and had no choice but to concentrate and fight against the Little Human King. Break! Tang Feng took this opportunity to release another sword strike, directly breaking through the immortal pass. Boom! The immortal pass trembled and even more rubble flew out. One could see that the gate of the immortal pass had been slashed into a crater. If this continued, there was a real possibility that it would be broken. Kill? Don't let him succeed. The 9th Tribulation sub-immortals of the Outerverse crazily attacked Tang Feng. Tang Feng's protective sword shield dimmed, and there were several terrifying wounds on his body. Lu Ming tried his best to stop these 9th Tribulation sub-immortals, but it was too difficult. How could he block the 8 9th Tribulation sub-immortals who were originally besieging the Junior Human King, the 3 who were originally besieging him, and the few who were originally attacking Tang Feng? Instead, he was hit, and his bloody light trembled non-stop. Brat, I'll kill you first. Many 9th Tribulation sub-immortals joined forces to besiege Lu Ming. Lu Ming roared and exerted his strength to the extreme, but in the end he could only barely hold back 5 9th Tribulation sub-immortals. The other experts charged at Tang Feng together. If this continued, Tang Feng would not be able to break through. Boom! At this moment, the void exploded and a flaming sword slashed out, sending an expert who was charging at Tang Feng flying. Then the sword flashed and slashed at the others. A figure appeared, shrouded in flames and holding a flaming sword with a shocking aura. A remnant immortal. Another remnant immortal. It's the quasi-immortal tribe. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that this person was from the quasi-immortal tribe. Could it be the ancestor of the quasi-immortal tribe? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. He had once heard Song Qiong mention that there was a perfected immortal ancestor in the quasi-immortal tribe. Back then, when they were fighting for the immortal slough in the Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven, Song Qiong finally relied on an immortal imprint to successfully seize a type of immortal slough. However, the ancestor of the quasi-immortal tribe had already fallen from the immortal Dao realm, just like the ancestor of the Tsangqing divine realm. Song Lin, it's you. You're actually not dead yet. Ancestor Wu Nian cried out in surprise. You're not dead yet, how can I die first? Song Lin replied. The quasi-immortal tribe has always been greedy for life and afraid of death. It's normal for them to survive. Phoenix of the demon race said coldly, as if she was not interested in the quasi-immortal tribe. The quasi-immortal tribe was actually neither the demon race nor the human race. During the prehistoric continent, apart from the human race, the demon race, and the Wu people, there were actually many other races. It was just that they weren't as powerful as the three races, and the quasi-immortal tribe was one of them. Today, for the sake of the prehistoric universe and my descendants, I'm going all out. Fight. The ancestor of the quasi-immortal tribe roared. He ignored Phoenix's sarcasm and attacked with all his strength, blocking the three ninth tribulation quasi-immortals. However, it could be seen that Song Lin's battle strength was inferior to ancestor Wu Nian and Phoenix. He was barely able to fight against the three ninth tribulation quasi-immortals and was retreating step by step after a few moves. How many of the remaining evils of the prehistoric universe have come out? Today we'll eliminate them all. The experts of the Great Bone Cosmos shouted and attacked with all their strength. Clearly, the ninth tribulation quasi-immortals of the Outerverse were also going all out. They no longer held back and used their trump cards. Because once Tang Feng became an immortal, he would definitely not let them off. Although Fei Huang, Junior Human King, Lu Ming, and Song Lin were blocking with all their strength, they still couldn't block everyone. There were still 7 people besieging Tang Feng. What was more terrifying was that the 5 ninth tribulation quasi-immortals who were recuperating outside the battlefield had stabilized their injuries and returned to the battlefield. They didn't attack the others and surrounded Tang Feng immediately. They knew very well that as long as they killed Tang Feng, the others would be easy to deal with. In this way 12 people besieged Tang Feng. Bang! Tang Feng was in the middle of knocking on the Immortal Pass, and his body was directly torn apart while he was distracted. Although he immediately reformed, his aura was clearly weaker than before. Everyone's heart sank. If this continued, Tang Feng would definitely not be able to break through the Immortal Pass. If they couldn't become immortals, they would definitely not be able to keep the core of the universe. Fight. Let's die together. The origins and quasi-immortals of the Ashen Azure Divine Realm were all going all out. Boom, boom, boom. Many origins powerhouses rushed out and then their bodies exploded. Self-destruction. Yes, many origins in the Ashen Azure Divine Realm self-destructed their origin roots. Your opponent is me. The 3 primogenitors, Fei Huang, and the others tried their best to stop him. However, they were at a disadvantage and the other side had many experts. How could they stop them? One by one the experts attacked Tang Feng. Explode. This time, a total of 10 sub-immortals soared into the sky and exploded into dazzling lights. Among these 10 sub-immortals, there were several 8th tribulation sub-immortals. Originally, there were only about 20 sub-immortals in the Tsangqing Divine Realm and the primitive universe. In just a short while they had lost 20. After this battle, almost all the sub-immortals in the primitive universe were exhausted. It was too tragic. In the distance, Lu Song, Yao Yi and the others' eyes were blood-red and tears flowed down. There were still 500 to 600 origins left in the Tsangqing Divine Realm, and they were all crying. The power of the self-destruction of 10 sub-immortals and even 8th tribulation sub-immortals was too strong. The 12 ninth tribulation sub-immortals bore the brunt of the powerful force and were forced to retreat. They were even injured and their bodies were tattered. The self-destruction of an 8th tribulation sub-immortal was already a threat to them. Tang Feng took this opportunity to slash out again. Boom. Crack. Cracking sounds came from above the Immortal Pass. This time, several cracks appeared in succession. The Immortal Pass was about to be broken. The Outerverse powerhouses were a little panicked. We can't let him make the next slash. Kill. The 12 powerhouses attacked Tang Feng again. Not only that, but other powerhouses also arrived. Several dozen terrifying attacks rushed towards Tang Feng all at once, drowning Tang Feng. Tang Feng's body instantly exploded. No! Everyone in the primitive universe roared in their hearts and their eyes were bloodshot. Was Tang Feng dead? After sacrificing so much, it was still difficult to succeed in the end. He naturally recognized this figure. In the immortal graveyard, in front of a large grave, Lu Ming had fought with this figure for many years. Relying on this figure, the power of his Genesis techniques had greatly increased. In the end, the figure even flew into the primordial god stone, causing a layer of stone to fall off, revealing the stone's original appearance. This figure was the one that had flown into the primordial god stone in the immortal graveyard. The figure was very small, like a little human standing on the surface of the primordial god stone. Its feet moved in a mysterious way, and its fists danced as if it was practicing a fist technique. Lu Ming was enlightened. Unconsciously, he moved along with the figure. He stepped on the void, waved his fists and blasted them out. Whoosh! In the next moment, Lu Ming's speed suddenly increased. In the blink of an eye, he caught up with the ninth tribulation sub-immortals and punched one of them. At this moment, Lu Ming's fists exploded with boundless power. They were unstoppable and everything was destroyed and turned into nothingness. Bang! The layers of defense set up by the ninth tribulation sub-immortal were instantly penetrated. The fist force crushed down, and the ninth tribulation sub-immortal's body directly exploded. Even his soul couldn't escape and was completely obliterated by the fist force. A ninth tribulation sub-immortal was killed just like that. This was the third ninth tribulation sub-immortal to die in today's battle. Previously, Tang Feng had killed one and Azure Ox had killed another. Now Lu Ming had killed one. Even Lu Ming himself was a little stunned. He never thought that the power would be so strong. Great! Fei Huang, the little human king, and the others were also stunned at first. Although they were also shocked and couldn't understand why Lu Ming's battle strength had soared. But no matter the reason, Lu Ming's battle strength had skyrocketed, and it was a good thing for them. The ninth tribulation sub-immortals of the Outerverse were shocked. The vitality of a ninth tribulation sub-immortal was extremely tenacious, and they were actually killed just like that. This made their hearts turn cold. Lu Ming's fist energy covered the 29th tribulation sub-immortals and pulled them into the battle. Lu Ming's fist energy was filled with a fatal threat. The 9th tribulation sub-immortal who was attacked by Lu Ming could only stop his counterattack. Lu Ming alone blocked 29th tribulation sub-immortals, greatly reducing the pressure on the others. In the Outerverse, there were only 37 9th tribulation sub-immortals left. Shui Higan was entangled by the junior human king, so there were only 36 of them left. Lu Ming had entangled 20 of them, leaving 16 of them. Fei Huang, the 3 primogenitors, the demon phoenix, and Song Qing attacked the remaining 16 sub-immortals with all their might. This way Tang Feng finally obtained a chance to catch his breath. Mustering all of his strength, he slashed out another sword strike. Boom! This sword strike landed on the Immortal Pass, causing it to shake violently. Dense cracks appeared on the Immortal Pass and debris flew everywhere. The Immortal Pass was about to be broken. The 3 primogenitors, the demon phoenix and Song Qing were overjoyed. He was about to succeed. At their peak, they were true immortals and had broken through the Immortal Pass. They knew very well that Tang Feng's Immortal Pass was about to be broken. One sword strike. Perhaps he only needed one more sword strike to break through the Immortal Pass and become an immortal. The 9th tribulation sub-immortals of the Outerverse panicked. Use the immortal weapon. Now that the universal core has merged, the primitive universe is much more stable. A broken immortal weapon will not cause the universe to be destroyed. That's right. Use the broken immortal weapon to kill them. Someone shouted. Kill. Wang Gu of the Nether River Great Cosmos took out a pitch-black sword. In the beginning, Wang Gu had used this sword to break the seal of the Azure Godly Realm. This was a broken immortal weapon. Help me revive the immortal weapon. Wang Gu roared. Several experts of the Nether River Great Cosmos attacked together and activated the immortal weapon. Buzz. The immortal weapon vibrated and was revived. It erupted with a shocking aura and turned into a terrifying sword light that slashed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's hair stood on end as he felt a fatal crisis. Immortal weapon. Even if it was a broken immortal weapon, once it was revived, its power would be extremely terrifying and unparalleled. That was because it was the power of the immortal Tao. Block it. Lu Ming roared as he frantically punched out with both fists. In an instant he had thrown out 99 punches. 99 punches were formed in one breath and bombarded the shocking sword light. Clang, clang, clang. In the blink of an eye, 99 explosions took place. With each explosion, the immortal armament battle sword light would weaken a bit. Chapter 5207. Come out. At the critical moment, Lu Ming grabbed at his glabella. A piece of metal flew out from his sea of consciousness and was caught by Lu Ming. This piece of metal was obtained from the dark-skinned old man in the Grand Supreme Immortal Capital. Back then, the dark-skinned old man had used this piece of metal to block the Human King's broken sword and displayed extraordinary power. During the previous battle, the piece of metal had not moved at all. Clearly, it was unwilling to help Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming took it out forcefully. The power from the blood crystal of the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty was injected into the broken metal frantically. Boom. A terrifying power recovered from the piece of metal. The piece of metal emitted a resplendent light. A pitch-black metal rod appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Of course, most of the metal rod was illusory and made of energy. Only that piece of metal was real. This should be the true appearance of the immortal weapon that the piece of metal belonged to. A long rod. Boom. Lu Ming held the rod with one hand and attacked. The first to bear the brunt was the black battle sword. Clang. The two collided and a deafening explosion erupted. The black battle sword shook violently, and the sword light dissipated as it was sent flying. Lu Ming did not stop. The metal rod changed direction and attacked the huge mountain above his head, sending it flying. Kill? Lu Ming roared like an invincible war immortal. The metal rod swept out and the rod light erupted. It was unparalleled. Not only did it attack the two pieces of immortal weapons, but it also enveloped the other ninth tribulation sub-immortals. The huge rod shadow filled the sky as if an entire world was pressing down. Oh no! The ninth tribulation sub-immortals' expressions changed drastically as they felt a fatal threat. If this rod hit, not many ninth tribulation sub-immortals could withstand it. At the critical moment, a green pagoda rushed out of the body of a ninth tribulation sub-immortal from the jade clear great cosmos. The green pagoda only had 3 levels and it was obviously a broken immortal weapon. As the 10th great cosmos of the Yang realm, it had obviously brought a powerful weapon this time. The green pagoda rapidly expanded and flew up, colliding with the rod shadow. Boom. A terrifying force swept out. Those sub-immortals who were at a disadvantage trembled violently and retreated continuously. Many of them vomited blood. They couldn't even withstand the shock waves from the collision of broken immortal weapons. The azure pagoda was sent flying, and Lu Ming's staff shadow also dissipated. Again? Lu Ming roared. Lu Ming could feel that the power of the blood crystal from the Grand Supreme Immortal Dynasty's lord was being depleted at a rapid rate. After all, the blood crystal's energy was just a shedding of the Taishang Immortal Dynasty's emperor. It didn't have much energy left. Chapter 5209. In the primeval great cosmos, countless fragments of continents soared into the sky. In the depths of the void, a massive amount of power rushed towards Tang Feng. If one's cultivation was high enough, they would even be able to see the endless threads converging towards Tang Feng and covering his body and sword. This was the order of the primeval great cosmos. Tang Feng was borrowing the power of the primeval great cosmos's order. This sword strike was incomparably stunning, surpassing both ancient and modern times. Its might was so great that it was shocking. Even the patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos had a change in expression. He quickly formed hand seals with both hands, drawing upon the power of the immortal Tao and slashing out a terrifying blade light. Nirvana blade. Boom. The blade and sword collided, and the universe trembled. In the next instant, the blade light shattered, and the patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos retreated rapidly. Let's go. Then, the patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos waved his sleeves and swept Shwehigan away. His actual body was far away in the Nirvana Great Cosmos. He was just borrowing the power of Shwehigan's body to reflect. The distance was too far and the power reflected was limited. Tang Feng had risen from the ashes and become an immortal in the ruins. With the core of the universe as his foundation, this kind of immortal ascension was no small matter. In a sense, he could represent the primeval great cosmos and borrow the power of the primeval great cosmos to fight against his enemies. As long as he was in the primeval great cosmos, Tang Feng's power would be extremely shocking and far surpass his cultivation base. Under such circumstances, it wasn't good to stay for long. He could only retreat first. Shuaihigan couldn't die here. You want to leave? Stay. Tang Feng shouted as his sword light pierced the sky and struck out again. This was the sword of a supreme sword immortal. It shattered everything and instantly caught up with the Patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos and went straight for Shuaihigan. The Patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos created dozens of layers of defense, but when the sword light struck, these layers of defense collapsed one after another. Boom. In the end, one of the arms of the Patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos was destroyed. Shuaihigan, who was within it, screamed in horror. Freeze! The Patriarch of the Nirvana Great Cosmos attacked with all his strength. Although the power of the sword light was constantly weakened by him, he was still a step too late. Shuaihigan was swept by the sword light, and she screamed in pain as half of her body exploded. The Patriarch of the Permitha Great Cosmos waved his hand and grabbed the remaining half of Shuaihigan's body. Then he tore the space apart and disappeared completely. Tang Feng's expression was somewhat ugly. Shuaihigan still ran away. Chapter 52:10. Tang Feng frowned slightly. He had to consider the other party's words. If it was just him, he wouldn't care. However, he had a wife, children, disciples, and friends. He had to be careful. Moreover, the primordial universe was riddled with holes and had many things to do. It needed time to develop and a stable environment. Thus, joining the Yang court was the best choice. If he joined the Yang court, not only would he be protected from the attacks of the Yin world, but he would also receive a large amount of resources from the Yang court. It was crucial for the development of the primitive universe. The Holy Light Great Cosmos's influence in the Yang court was not to be underestimated. If they really became enemies, it would be very disadvantageous for the primitive universe's future development. The competition and killing between the younger generation was just a small matter. However, once the true immortals started fighting, it would be a big deal. Countless thoughts flashed through Tang Feng's mind. If it were him, he would definitely take action. Not only would he kill these true immortals and their origins, but he would also kill this true immortal in front of him. After killing him, he would just leave. However, the hope of the primitive universe's development now rested on him. Looks like I'm not the only one here. The Holy Light Great Cosmos's true immortals suddenly looked in other directions. Suddenly, many terrifying figures appeared in many places in the universe. They were all immortal path experts from some great cosmos in the Yang realm. These figures were incomparably huge. They squeezed the void and protected the experts of their great cosmos. Tang Feng frowned and suddenly looked in another direction in the universe. The Yin world's true immortal. Tang Feng muttered. Not long ago. On the other side of the universe. This was the place where the experts of the Nether River Great Cosmos were stationed. Although many experts of the Nether River Great Cosmos had gone to the Azure Divine Realm, there were still many experts stationed here. Tang Feng's clone appeared and immediately attacked, slashing out a shocking sword light. However, it was the same in the Holy Light Great Cosmos. The sword light was blocked and a figure appeared in the void. It was indomitable and its aura could swallow mountains and rivers. It was surrounded by a huge nether river. It was a true immortal expert. Kill. Tang Feng didn't have any scruples facing the Yin world's true immortal. Since they were in different camps, it was fine even if he killed all the living beings in the Yin world. The dazzling sword light carried a fatal power as it slashed toward the true immortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos. You just broke through to the true immortal stage and you want to fight me? Courting death. The true immortal from the Nether River Great Cosmos snorted coldly. He was a veteran true immortal who had been on the immortal Dao for a long time. Tang Feng had only just attained his Dao, yet he had dared to attack him. Then I'll take this opportunity to get rid of him. The Nether River Great Cosmos blasted out a palm strike. Immediately, the Nether River surged and tried to swallow Tang Feng. Boom. The sword light slashed onto the Underworld River. Huge waves surged into the sky, and the Underworld River rolled backward. The face of the true immortal from the Nether River Great Cosmos changed as he roared and pushed out with both hands. The Underworld River surged. On it, there were unexpectedly creatures that appeared. They roared towards the heavens and released terrifying attacks. After all, Tang Feng was only a clone. In the end, he could not resist and was forced to retreat. In the distance, Tang Feng's real body was originally sitting cross-legged. At this moment, he suddenly stood up and took a deep breath. All of his doppelgangers in the universe returned at the same time and entered his body. His true body took a step forward and appeared near the true immortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos. Sword hums reverberated throughout the universe as sword light soared into the sky, sweeping across all directions as it slashed down continuously. The true immortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos roared and took out his ninth tribulation quasi-immortal weapon to resist with all his might. That's right. It was a ninth tribulation quasi-immortal weapon, not an immortal weapon. After all, there were too few true immortal weapons. Immortal weapons of true immortals could not be refined. Only those who had obtained them at the beginning of the great cosmos and in the depths of the primal chaos could possibly nurture them. The number of immortal weapons in the entire universe could be counted. Every one of them had a record and a name. Most true immortals did not have immortal weapons. They used quasi-immortal weapons that accompanied them. However, the true immortal of the Nether River Great Cosmos was horrified to discover that he was no match for Tang Feng. Tang Feng's sword light was endless and incomparably sharp, as if it could cut through everything. He actually could not block it. Boom, boom, boom. Figures kept appearing in the void in all directions. Each of them was indomitable and had a shocking aura. All of them were immortal Tao existences. They even used mysterious methods to reflect the universe and project the situation in this place. Everyone in the universe could see the scene here. These are true immortals. They are all true immortals. The three primogenitors, Phoenix of the Yao race, Songqing and the others exclaimed. There were at least a dozen true immortals. They felt a huge pressure and did not know the purpose of these true immortals. These true immortals were all watching the battle seriously. Some of them were shocked. Chapter 52:11. Tang Feng brandished his sword and raised his combat power to the peak with the help of the Eldritch Universe. But there was still a big gap between him and an immortal king. Under the claw, the sword light kept collapsing, and the laws of the universe were exploding and annihilating. This scene was reflected in the eyes of every living being in the universe. Lu Ming, the three ancestors, Fei Huang and the others all saw it. Many people revealed looks of despair. Could it be that Tang Feng couldn't become an immortal and would die in battle? Was the Eldritch Universe incurable after all? At this moment, in front of the claw, a jade-like palm appeared and gently slashed on the claw. This jade-like palm seemed to be light. There was no force, and it didn't cause any abnormalities, as if it was a palm strike from an ordinary person. However, when his palm landed on the bony claw, numerous cracks appeared on the bony claw. Then with a loud bang, the bony claw exploded. Ah! In the void, a painful wail rang out. Following that, a gigantic skeleton was blasted out as it retreated backwards. In front of Tang Feng, a woman appeared. She was barefoot and wearing a short skirt. She had a slim figure and a beautiful face. She stood in the void just like that, otherworldly and untainted by the mortal world. Is she a human? Is she a senior of the human race? Lu Ming immediately thought of the senior powerhouses of the human race. Although a large number of powerhouses died in the battle at the end of the Eldritch Universe, it was speculated that some of them didn't die, sealed the Eldritch Universe and then went far away. Could it be that those seniors had returned after the fusion of the heart of the universe? To be able to injure a celestial king with a single strike, just how powerful was his combat prowess? In the history of the human race, there were only a few women with such combat power. The eternal queen of women? Lu Ming immediately thought of the peerless queen of women, one of the three kings. It's not a senior of the human race but the Eldritch race. On the side, Ancestor Wu Nian said. He frowned and his eyes were full of doubts. I didn't expect that even the Eldritch race would come today. The Eldritch race has always been aloof, and they don't care about the grudges of the other universes unless something major happens. On the side, the Phoenix of the Eldritch race said, also surprised and doubtful. The Eldritch race? What is the Elysian clan? Lu Ming asked. Although he had heard the ancestors mention it previously, they had only mentioned it briefly. Lu Ming did not ask about it in detail. Although the previous chapter had talked about the Elysian clan in detail, the main character didn't know about it. The leader of the Yang court, the #1 cosmos in the Yang realm. Legend has it that they were born in the Yang realm's cosmic sea. Chapter 52:12. It's a little strange. The firmament race has never interfered in the affairs of other great cosmoses. Back when the primitive universe was destroyed, they didn't even make a move. Why would they suddenly make a move this time? Ancestor Wu Nian whispered, very surprised. It's indeed a little strange. The other two primogenitors, the Phoenix of the Fiend race and Song Lin, were also puzzled. They were all immortal Dao beings who had survived from the previous era. They knew a lot and understood a lot. But no matter what, at least the primitive universe is saved. This is a good thing. In the end, the Phoenix of the Fiend race nodded. They waited quietly, waiting for Tang Feng's news. After a while, the void split open and Tang Feng's figure appeared. He took a step forward, landed on the highest mountain in the heart of the universe and sat down cross-legged. I'll consolidate my cultivation base now. You guys heal your injuries first. Tang Feng's voice was heard. Let's go. Junior Human King Ancestor Wu Nian and the others showed a trace of joy. They stepped forward and came to Tang Feng's side and sat down cross-legged. Lu Ming, let's go. Tang Feng has just broken through to the immortal realm and is consolidating his cultivation base now. We can also get some benefits by his side. It will be very useful for our recovery. Fei Huang said to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and came to Tang Feng's side with Fei Huang and sat down cross-legged. The power is fading. Lu Ming felt that his power was rapidly fading. This was the power from the blood crystal of the Lord of the Taishang Celestial Dynasty. At this time it was quickly fading. In the end, a new blood crystal condensed in front of Lu Ming's chest. However, the size of this blood crystal was several times smaller than before. Only 1/5 of the original was left. So much has been consumed. Lu Ming's heart was heavy. Perhaps the Lord of the Taishang Celestial Dynasty had planned to use that blood crystal to be reborn, but now that so much had been consumed, could it still be possible? There was not much hope in the first place and now it might be even slimmer. If I have the ability in the future, I will definitely find a way to let Senior be reborn. Lu Ming muttered silently, and then put the blood crystal into his sea of consciousness. At the same time, the figure on the primordial god stone also disappeared. At this time, waves after waves of profound and powerful energy pervaded out from Tang Feng's body. Lu Ming inhaled the energy and the injuries on his body quickly healed. Tang Feng was consolidating his cultivation base, and mysterious energy constantly permeated out. The little human king, Fei Huang, thoughtless progenitor, and the others were absorbing this energy to heal their bodies and souls. Apart from them, the original origins of the Azure Divine Realm and the few remaining sub-immortals were also absorbing this energy to heal themselves. In the previous battle, everyone's injuries were too severe. Especially Fei Huang, the junior human king, the three primogenitors, the Phoenix, and Song Qing. They had fought dozens of Ninth Tribulation sub-immortals and had been on the brink of death several times. Their injuries were unimaginably severe. If they were to recover normally, they would need to sleep for endless years to slowly recover. But now, with the help of the energy that Tang Feng emitted from consolidating his cultivation, their injuries were actually quickly recovering. Having just confirmed his Tao and broken through the immortal realm, he would definitely receive the support of the mysterious energy. Moreover, what Tang Feng had broken through was not an ordinary immortal barrier. What he had achieved was not an ordinary true immortal. Relatively speaking, Lu Ming's injuries were considered light. He had the energy of the Lord of the Taishang Celestial Dynasty to protect his body. Although he was also injured, his injuries were not that serious. In addition, the life force of the forbidden body was extremely strong. His injuries were completely healed in a short time. Lu Ming continued to cultivate. This is a rare opportunity. Tang Feng has just broken through and this kind of energy can only be encountered by chance. It can refine his body and soul. When his cultivation base is completely consolidated, this kind of energy will be emitted again. Fei Huang's voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. Senior, if that's the case, I'll go and bring Xiao Qing and the others here. Lu Ming replied. I've already sent out a clone to bring them. You can cultivate at ease. Fei Huang said. Only then did Lu Ming feel relieved. He closed his eyes and began to absorb this kind of energy to refine his soul and body. Sure enough, he felt that his soul and body were rapidly improving under the nourishment of this energy. His body and soul had already reached the level of the second tribulation. At this moment they continued to climb. Not long after, Fei Huang's clone returned and brought Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, Tang Jian, the first heavenly sword, the second divine sword, the third demon sword, Bubbles, Dandan and the others. There were hundreds of people. Lu Ming's family and friends, as long as they were talented enough, were all brought here. His son Lu Shenhuang, granddaughter Lu Qi, disciple Lu Xiang, Ouyang Moli and the others. There were also a group of experts from the Primitive Alliance. Everyone sat cross-legged in the surroundings, absorbing the energy and cultivating calmly. Qiuqiu flew out from Lu Ming's wrist. It opened its mouth wide and absorbed the energy in large mouthfuls. 2 hours later, Lu Ming felt that his body and soul had transformed at the same time. They had reached a higher level and he had actually reached the level of 3 tribulations. Chapter 52:13. In the primitive universe, many people were breaking through. The people of the Primitive Alliance, the people of the Tsangqing Divine Realm, the primitive demon race, and the original races of the primitive universe. For example, the Buddha race, the Devil race, the Metal race, the 10 Royal Plant races, the Spirit race and so on, and the Quasi-Sage race. Many of these races in the universe who had been stuck at a bottleneck for a long time were also breaking through their cultivation. Not only peak divine masters broke through to the origin realm, but many other realms were also breaking through. As the primitive universe was perfected, it was destined to usher in a wave of breakthrough. This was the accumulation of the past, and it exploded at this moment. Not long after, Tang Feng finally stabilized his cultivation, and that strange energy also completely disappeared. Fei Huang, Junior Human King, the 3 ancestors, Phoenix, and Tsang Qing's injuries were about 60 to 70% better. This was already very rare. If they were allowed to recover step by step, it would be difficult for them to recover to this extent without dozens or hundreds of stellar years. Although they hadn't fully recovered yet with this foundation, they would recover very quickly in the future. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Qiuyu and the others came to Lu Ming's side one after another. Lu Ming also told them about the previous battle. Everyone trembled with fear and their hearts fluctuated. That. Tang Jun flew directly to Tang Feng with a happy smile on her face. Good, it's good that you're back. Looking at his daughter, Tang Feng also revealed a smile. Is that the sword ancestor? Xian Yanqing looked at Tang Feng with a complicated look in her eyes. At this time, Tang Feng also looked at Xian Yanqing. His eyes were as deep as the stars and universe and also somewhat complicated. After a long time, he nodded slightly at Xian Yanqing and revealed a smile. He already knew that the personality of Xian Yanqing in this life was this life, not the previous Tang Qing. Although she had the memories of the previous life to be precise, it was no longer the complete Tang Qing. It was just another person with the same memories. However, reincarnation was originally risky, and it was already very rare to be able to awaken the memories. Little Qing, go and pay him a visit. If you have any questions, go and ask him. Lu Ming held Xian Yanqing's hand and said. Xian Yanqing hesitated for a moment before finally stepping forward and arriving in front of Tang Feng. Is she okay? Xian Yanqing said with concern in his eyes. Tang Feng smiled. He naturally knew who Xian Yanqing was asking about. Yi Xan was his wife and the mother of Xian Yanqing, and Tang Jun. Xian Yanqing was still worried about the safety of his mother in his previous life, which meant that he still had feelings for them. That was enough. Don't worry. However, with the energy overflowing from Tang Feng's breakthrough, his injuries had already recovered by 50 to 60%. The 4 sub-immortals of the demi-human tribe were very cunning. When they saw Tang Feng showing signs of a successful breakthrough, they directly abandoned Han Ming and fled. That's good. Senior, I want to ask a question. Lu Ming said. You want to ask me why I gave you the Chaos Ring back then, right? Han Ming saw the question in Lu Ming's heart at a glance. Senior, do you know that the heart of the universe is in the Chaos Ring? Lu Ming asked. Nonsense, of course I know. I personally sealed that heart of the universe and refined it into the Chaos Ring. How can I not know? I gave it to you back then because I recognized the wrong person. Han Ming said. Lu Ming, recognized the wrong person. Lu Ming had thought of thousands of reasons, but he had never thought that it would be such a reason. I once obtained a strand of heaven's will in a ruin. I vaguely sensed that I would be in great trouble. In the future, there would be a new forbidden physique that would rise from the ashes and become an immortal. When I first escaped, I discovered that you had a forbidden body. I even thought that the person who could become an immortal was you. That's why I gave the chaotic ring to you and wanted to help you. But now, it seems that the person projected by the strand of fate was not you at all. It was Tang Feng. So I was wrong. Han Ming explained in detail. Lu Ming was really speechless. He had never thought that it would be such a reason. But at least the doubts in his heart were resolved. Goodbye. Lu Ming cupped his fists and left with Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Lu Shenhuang and the others. They returned to the continents that the Azure Divine Realm had moved to. These continents were indeed moving quickly in the direction of the heart of the universe. Lu Ming and the others stayed here. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.